Good morning, and we're going to call the meeting to order. As we begin our final board meeting of the year, let me begin with announcing two Regent transitions. First, I want to share that Regent Steve Seibel has stepped down from the board. Steve contributed thoughtful leadership during his time on the board, serving on the Advancement Committee and on the Finance Committee, where he held the position of Vice Chair. Regent Seibel exemplifies the adage that success creates greater demands on your time, so we do understand his need to step away for other commitments. We are deeply grateful to Regent Seibel for his time, his energy, his personal mentoring and counsel to me, and his extensive expertise, and we wish him well. We're also pleased to welcome Tisha Edwards as the newest regent of the University System of Maryland. Tisha, raise your hand. She brings more than 2 decades of public service and private sector experience in education, social work, and community advocacy, and currently serves as president and CEO of the Maryland Bankers Association. Tisha, we welcome you warmly and look forward to your insights on the board. This month, many regents will bring greetings to winter commencement ceremonies across the system. 6 universities are hosting 9 ceremonies celebrating thousands of graduates. Regent Fish and I will virtually address graduates at UMGC, Frostburg, and UMBC. Regent Lewis is slated to speak at both Bowie State and UMES commencements, and Regent Speaks, Steppens, and Wood will address Towson graduates at 3 separate ceremonies. Congratulations to all of our students, their families, and friends. The knowledge and experience earned at our universities will build brighter futures for them and their communities. Turning to today's agenda, and after public comment, we will hear from our host at Coppin State University. We will hold the educational forum, hear from Chancellor Perman, and receive reports from our advisory councils. However, before we start the agenda, I'd like to share a holiday video message from Chancellor Perman, whose remarks underscore our mission and the importance of centering students on all that we do.
This holiday season, I thank you for centering our students in everything you do, for seeing in them not only what makes them stand apart, but what tethers them together. Our students are different in age and race and gender and religion. The experiences that shaped one didn't shape another. But every one of them believes that higher education is the path to the life they want, a life of purpose and fulfillment, a life defined not by struggle, but opportunity, a life that makes them proud. This year, 178,000 students are betting on the University System of Maryland to be this difference for them and for those they love the most. Their future is our future. So I thank you for the paths you've cleared to that better life, for the dreams you've put within their reach. I thank you for every promise you've kept to our students year after year. I thank you for your undimmed belief that what you're doing matters, because to them it always has. I wish you a joyful holiday and a new year of peace.
Well said, Chancellor. As you reminded us, in Maryland, the future of our students is the future of all of us. Let's carry that message forward into the new year. It's now time for public comment. Ms. Wilkerson will moderate the public session. Ms. Wilkerson?
Good morning, Madam Chair and Regents. We have 6 public comment speakers this morning, and in accordance with our guidelines, which are posted on the website, the agenda has set aside 15 minutes for this purpose. Requests for public comments have been submitted 48 hours before the meeting, and the comments should pertain to items on the agenda. The board fully dedicates the period of public comment to the speakers and will not respond to questions or comments during the meeting. As needed, any follow-up will take place thereafter. As I said, we've got 6 requests for public comment. Given the number of speakers, we've allotted 2 minutes for each speaker to address the board. I don't know if he is here, but we have a faculty member, Associate Professor Hudgens. Are you here? No? Okay, so we'll move on to the other speakers. So first up, we have Khadija Abdallah from UMBC and UMGC. The remaining speakers are going to speak on the Advancement Committee charge and the Sustainability Action Plan. So Khadija Abdallah is the first speaker.
Good morning. My name is Khadija. I'm an undergraduate student at UMGC, and I'm speaking today on behalf of the USM Divestment Coalition for Palestine. We're a coalition of individuals across the system demanding the end of USM profit from war and genocide. As listed in the charge, the Advancement Committee is responsible for fundraising money for the endowment. According to reports on the ground, the escalated genocide in Gaza and ceasefire has taken the lives of over 500,000 martyrs, and in the past 2 years, the Zionist entity has committed countless war crimes and international law violations against the people of Gaza. The money the Advancement Committee fundraises supports our research labs, grants, buildings, but at the cost of the genocide of our people. Thousands of students across the USM from Palestine, Sudan, the Philippines to Ukraine have loved ones that are harmfully impacted by the very bombs that this endowment invests in. There are also 2 sustainability and climate-related items on the agenda. While these are necessary initiatives, it is delusional to deny the global military-industrial complex's role in accelerating the climate crisis. The tons of bombs dropped in Gaza during the first 6 months of the genocide produced more emissions than the rest of the world combined, and the reconstruction efforts alone could add tens of millions of tons of emissions more. We have been following all the procedures. We have requested meetings and consistently been denied. We've submitted inquiries through the USMF's process for inquiries related to sustainable investing. All of these have been rejected, despite the fact that it is ridiculous to deny weapons of mass destruction's clear violation of the USM's ESG policies. There is a precedent for divestment within the system, once in 2006 during the Darfur genocide, and again in 2016 from the Carbon Underground Top 200 list. Neither time did the endowment fund crumble, nor did the university partnerships with those companies. The system has consistently failed us by choosing profit over people, but we are uniting people across the system and educating them on the logistics of the endowment. Students are gaining awareness of the crimes of the companies promoted on campus, and the unelected regents who simultaneously sit on the boards of these very same entities that profit off of and facilitate genocide. Every single member here has the power to initiate a movement for divestment, and it's everyone's responsibility to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Khadija. Next, we'll have Sami Al-Qasim from UMBC.
Good morning. My name is Sami Al-Qasim. I'm a staff employee at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, as well as an alumni of the University of Maryland, College Park. I recently learned that the Board of Regents is composed of former Lockheed Martin and NSA executives and Department of War lobbyists. It's extremely concerning to me to see the USM have people like this on the board. Corporate executives and lobbyists have no place in higher education, a place not driven by profits and war, but freedom of speech and critical thinking. More concerning is that people like them are in charge of managing the USM endowment funds. As a Palestinian American, I've watched universities for the past years, including U.S. institutions, suppress any attempts at speaking out against Israel's genocide of Palestinians in Gaza, a genocide that the Department of War is deeply complicit in and that Lockheed Martin has profited millions off of. And that is why I call on USM to fully disclose all donor funds and investment fund managers and divest from companies like Lockheed that make millions off the death and destruction of my people. It is important that at a time when so many academic and student programs are being cut, that we are transparent in showing where the money is going, rather than concealing it while maintaining partnerships with companies that profit off of war and genocide. And I want to end by saying that the Department of War is the world's largest institutional emitter of greenhouse gases. Working with agencies and corporations like these will only damage the ambitious climate goals that the state of Maryland has set, especially amongst USM, which has been leading the charge in those goals. And to this point, I also call on USM and all the institutions that make it up to break ties with agencies and corporations that promote and profit off of war and genocide. Thank you.
Thank you, Sammy. Next, we'll have Hassan Ansari from UBalt Law School.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Hassan Ansari, and I'm a current second-year student at the University of Baltimore School of Law, and I'm a very proud alumni of UMBC. I would like to thank the board today for the opportunity to share my thoughts, and I hope that it is taken into consideration. The agenda item I would like to shortly address is referring to the Advancement Committee charge. Now, it is no secret that our university system prides itself on different opportunities, such as this vast array of academic programs that thousands of students like myself have benefited from. However, when it comes to other critical programs we have, such as our endowment, it seems that we've lost some of our integrity, especially when observing specific companies and institutions our system has partnered with. One of the main factors I really appreciated when I had the pleasure of serving as the Muslim Students Association president at UMBC was the sense of standing for justice and truth throughout the student body. Across different race, socioeconomic, and religious backgrounds, all of the students and faculty members I had the pleasure of working with expressed very similar values, such as refusing to be complicit with oppression and being vocal about any concerns we may have on our campus and as students of the USM system, even if it makes some of us uncomfortable. As a current law student at UB, I feel the same values every day when I step into the classroom, and it gives me hope that one day my colleagues and I can be strong advocates for social change and justice in the world. Having said that, it becomes hard to reconcile seeing these values every day, but then seeing our endowment reflect a very different story. Let us be very clear. The fact we have endowments with these companies that are responsible for so much death and destruction across the world is a simple travesty. If we truly are a university system that promotes civic engagement and innovation, then it's time to close this chapter of enabling these parasitic institutions and return these endowments to local investments and for resources on our campuses. Again, I'm so proud to be a current law student that is a product of this system, but that does not change the fact that we have to reevaluate our collaboration efforts and bring about meaningful change. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Zayad Khan from UMD.
Good morning. My name is Zaid Khan. I'm a student at the University of Maryland, College Park. I have the honor to be serving as the Student Government Association representative for the College of Computer, Mathematical, and Natural Sciences. My focus in computer science is on cybersecurity, not for surveillance and warfare, but for public good. I'm here to address the contradictions in the Advancement Committee charge and the item of Sustainability Action Plan. First, the Advancement Committee charge. This committee governs the system's private fundraising and endowment strategy. The stated purpose is to improve scholarship and innovation and ensure good stewardship. As a CS student, we are taught that the ethics of a system are determined by its inputs and outputs. Our university system's inputs are partnering and aligning with weapons manufacturers and war profiteers, and its outputs is an academic environment that restricts students protesting the very genocide these corporations fund. The genocide in Gaza, recognized by the UN and ICJ, has been carried out with companies like Lockheed Martin, DevCom, Northrop Grumman aiding the weapons causing this genocide. When this board's stewardship funnels their money and the research into our institutions, it makes our campuses directly beneficiaries and complicit of ethnic cleansing. This corporate pipelines the system builds are pipelines of blood money undermining the very scholarship and innovation you claim to support. This leads directly to the Sustainability Action Plan. Your Vision 2030 is a fantasy of climate leadership without moral imperative. You cannot be a leader in sustainability while being a partner to companies who are polluting our world due to their weapons like the U.S. Department of War and DEVCOM. The war machine is a primary driver of environmental destruction and climate collapse, such as what has happened throughout of all of Palestine for the last 77 years, and especially during the last 2 years in the escalated genocide in both Gaza and the ethnic cleansing in the West Bank. The logic is contradicting. Partnering with the architects of genocide is the ultimate act of environmental and social malpractice. Sustainability is a good business, is a hollow slogan if the business is genocide. True sustainability and academic integrity require ethical consistency. You cannot build a just future on the foundation of genocide. The board's choice is clear. Either continue being financiers of war or be educators for the liberated world. Thank you.
And our final speaker is Miriam Abd Allah from Salisbury.
Good morning. My name is Mariam, and I am a student studying nursing at Salisbury University. I'm here today to address the Board of Regents on the Advancement Committee charge. As a nursing student, from the first day, we are ingrained the American Nursing Association's Code of Ethics to protect human rights, reduce health disparities, and advance social justice. We are impressed upon the ethical principles of beneficence, our duty to do good, and non-maleficence, our duty to do no harm. Throughout my time at Salisbury, these integral principles have been woven in every step of my education. And our clinicals at the Tidal Health Regional Hospital, we have practiced this serving underserved and uninsured patients, many poultry factory workers from here and abroad. I've spent a semester at the Wacomico County Public Health Department working in programs such as WIC, Developmental Disability Department, and Healthy Families. And we conducted house visits for Haitian Creole families and provided care to Latino immigrants. What struck me most was the Public Health Department's unwavering commitment to care for every person that came through the door, irrespective of language, ethnicity, and immigration status. They fully embody the principle of social justice, fighting health disparities, and advancing equity. It is in this vein that I find it frankly disturbing to consider that my education may be poisoned by the hypocritical funding and blood money from corporations who profit from destroying the very things we are trying to fight. Companies who manufacture weapons of destruction and sell them to Israel being used to decimate Gaza and systematically dismantle the healthcare system. At least 94% of hospitals in the Gaza Strip have been damaged or destroyed. Only 17 out of 36 hospitals are functional as of December 2024, with over 1,000 healthcare workers killed. We have seen repeated target attacks of healthcare structures. We have seen outbreaks of preventable infectious diseases such as chloria and measles. We are seeing extremely high rates of acute malnutrition, especially in early childhood, which is causing significant brain damage. This does not just go away with a ceasefire. We're talking about the mental and physical handicapping of a generation. Thank you.
Thank you to our speakers. Madam Chair, this concludes public comment.
Before I introduce President Jenkins, I want to share a special note. It's actually something of a legacy homecoming for Regent Steppens. Both of her parents are Coppin alumni, and their names are engraved on the statue of Coppin's namesake, Fannie Jackson Cooper. Regent Steppens, welcome home. And now we'll welcome the president to give us our opening comments. And I want to personally thank you for a wonderful evening last night. First, a tour of your very own Nordstrom's Fashion Center downstairs and the grocery store, which was wonderful. All of the food that the students get to select it was just very impressive. But we topped it all off with the freshly tenured dean and her virtual reality demonstration. So thank you for a wonderful evening.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll let her know that you are advocating for her and you're in her corner. Well, good morning to everyone. It is an honor to have everyone here, to Chair Gooden, to the Regents, Chancellor Perman, to my colleagues, to all of our guests and friends who are here with us today. It is an honor to welcome you to Coppin State University. You know, during this period of time when higher education is facing wave after wave of uncertainty at both the federal and state levels, I commend our regents, the USM, and my fellow presidents for their resolve and their commitment to our students and to our institutions. Where others may shrink in these moments, our system remains strong, especially Coppin State University. As one Coppin, our commitment to our students, faculty, staff, alumni, and West Baltimore remains unshakable. This past year has been one for the record books for Coppin. One where we ushered in the new year by celebrating 125 years of generational changing education. Education that have brought students together, and from that bond, they've created incredible offspring, like the regent we have with us today. We also witnessed this year Coppin bring in 1,027 new scholars to Eagle Nation, our largest class in over 25 years. It was a year where we also saw our male enrollment surge over 52% in 4 years, making us #1 among Maryland's HBCUs and bucking national and state trends. It was a year that also saw Coppin become the fastest growing university in Greater Baltimore. A year where we surpassed our $25 million campaign, our first campaign in the history of this institution. A year where we achieved historic retention rates at 75%, up from just 57% 3 years prior. A year where we witnessed our Coppin State University women's volleyball team destroy the MEAC and win their second MEAC volleyball championship in just 3 years. And along the way, our ladies captured Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Rookie of the Year, and Coach of the Year.
Wow.
And I don't know if Coach is here with us. And speaking right on cue, please help me welcome and honor the MEAC 2025 volleyball champion. We have about 5 young ladies who had to travel, who could not be with us, but they are with us in spirit with their team. They are an incredible group of women. They represent themselves, the sport, this university, and the system at the highest level. They entered into the NCAA tournament where they faced Arizona State, fell a little short, but we had them on the ropes, and we'll be back next year. And that is a message to the entire MEAC. Thank you, ladies. All right. Thank you, Coach. Thank you. Dr. Anderson, this is Coppin's show right now. Don't be trying to get my attention. It was also a year where Coppin launched its Live by the Nest program, a program where we encourage faculty and staff to buy homes in West Baltimore. And in doing so, Coppin provided them a $50,000 grant towards down payment and closing costs, the largest down payment of any institution live near your work program in the history of Maryland. We have 6 faculty and staff in the pipeline. 2 have already purchased their homes and celebrated Thanksgiving for the first time with their families in their new homes. And Coppin is committed to home ownership and closing the wealth gap. As I said, it has been an extraordinary year at Coppin State University. We continue to demonstrate why we are not just a national leader in higher education, but also an irreplaceable and invaluable anchor university to Baltimore. At the core of our mission and our purpose are our scholars. Our scholars are the true measure of our success, and our faculty and staff do an amazing job educating, mentoring, and preparing our scholars to shape the world. And here at Coppin, experiential learning plays a profound role in our doing so. This year, under the direction of Provost Shanta Haywood, Provost, please stand. She created the Coppin Cross-Disciplinary Solution Program. Its purpose is to bring together Coppin scholars from various disciplines and have them identify complex challenges, which they then come together and work on from an interdisciplinary approach. Through this program, our ultimate goal is to embed a high-impact learning model into our core curriculum, establishing and requiring a pre-graduation cross-interdisciplinary experience for every student on our campus, thereby fostering essential collaboration skills and holistic analytic capabilities campus-wide. And under her leadership, today we have 4 scholars who will present their work on hunger relief efforts here at Coppin State University. Please help me welcome Micah, Avanti, Benjamin, and Blessing to the podium.
Good morning, everyone. Today, I'm Micah Smith, and I'm a double major in business management and accounting. I'm a junior at Coppin State University. Today, I'll be describing our research solving process with this initiative. At the start of this initiative, Shanta Haywood, our provost, challenged us to come up with a solution to a problem that many of our peers were facing here at Coppin State University. One of those issues that we were able to identify throughout all of our voting and democratic processes was the need for food security. Food insecurity, since we live in a desert of food, is something that many of our students and faculty sometimes struggle with, but we decided that something that we could do to create a solution to this issue was use our multidisciplinary backgrounds to create a solution that basically makes it so that it's the responsibility of the university to ensure that the students and those in need of food are able to get food.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Avanti Bennings. I'm a sophomore psychology major from Washington, D.C. Following Micah's discussion on our problem-solving process, we now want to focus on a concrete example of action, specifically at Coppin State University. We centered our efforts on fighting food insecurity on campus and within the surrounding community. We focused on 3 core initiatives. First, we have the Coppin Corner, our campus food pantry which provides essential, non-perishable goods to students and community members facing hardship. Second, the CSU Community Garden, which not only provides fresh, healthy produce, but also engages students in sustainable practices and community outreach. Additionally, this garden serves as a learning ground for our nursing and botany students, exposing them to agricultural skills. And third, the Mill on North Partnership, a food dining hall that welcomes us neighboring students to have access to warm, home-like cooked meals right down the street and with the student discount. These services are vital. For example, I have firsthand seen how the Coppin Corner offers convenient and immediate support. I have personally been using Coppin Corner since my freshman year, and I was just there this week, and even myself and my friends, we go in groups. And as for the meal, it's so welcoming, you just want to show it off, and I recently brought my grandma up to just come see how interesting it is and all the different options they have. I want to emphasize to you all how critical the Coppin Corner is. For example, the numbers speak volumes about the level of student need we are addressing. Just looking at the data from the single week of December 1st through the 5th, the impact is clear. We served 122 shoppers. A total of 1,072 items were distributed. That equates to 4,496 pounds of food distributed to those who needed it most. And critically, this represents an estimated dollar value of $1,675, provided directly to the students. This is important because this data emphasizes that Coppin State University isn't just recognizing the need, we are actively and successfully meeting the needs of students right now. Now, Benjamin will share about our partnership with Shady Grove.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Benjamin Apanakorli. I am a sophomore computer science major with a mathematics minor here at Coppin. And just like what Avanti said, the statistics show a demand. The data we gathered just last week with our students at Coppin gives everyone an idea just about the immediate and critical issue that food insecurity shows. Our pantry is able to help hundreds of students each week get the goods that they require, but we realize that this issue isn't just limited here at Coppin. So we wanted to explore what happened at other institutions. And that brought us to visiting the University of Maryland Shady Grove last spring. There, that was an amazing experience. We met with the honor students there, representatives from different industries and agencies, all of which who deal with food insecurity daily, students included. And for them, it's not just theories. We learned about concrete techniques and strategies that they use in their businesses, their schools, all to address this problem. This gave us a much broader, more strategic sense of what to do moving forward. And it helped us to understand how we can be more strategic with our partnerships and how to engage with different types of entities that deal with food insecurity, allowing us to build a better world for our students. And during our time at Shady Grove, after each presentation, we broke out into breakout rooms. And in these group sessions, it allowed for a lot of intense reflection and brainstorming. We learned about team building, collaboration, industry processes, and just ways that different industries deal with food insecurity in their different sectors. And I believe this collaboration was amazing. It allowed us to understand the scale of this issue, and I think for just the four of us and the rest of the honor students who went, it allowed us to realize just the scale of food insecurity and just how big of a problem it is. And that brought us into making our new policy, which I'm going to let Peace talk about.
So thank you, Benjamin. My name is Peace Alaide, and I'm a cybersecurity engineering major and mathematics minor. What Benjamin just walked you through was our process through going through Shady Grove and understanding that its application was important here at Coppin State University. We did not stop there. We took everything that we learned from our initial cross-disciplinary conversations and diverse standpoints to start configuring a process and outlining a model so that Coppin State would be able to manage this food insecurity here on our own campuses. Our model is built on 4 core pillars, the first being localized partnership networks. We realized the absolute necessity of building and maintaining sustainable networks for food and insecurity within our food desert because it is fundamental. Including Black farmers, Black businesses, and restaurants helps build economic gain and foster connection between our university and our communities, ensuring that we can utilize our localized networks to make sure our program can last. Next, there's standardized intake. Standardized intake and testing make sure that we have the appropriate necessities to be able to assess where our need first of all stands. Some students have religious restrictions, some students have dietary requirements, and some students have allergies. Being able to quantify and collect data based on these things to ensure that we're able to meet their need where it is and have resources allocated to where they specifically need them can ensure them and their ability to be able to effectively meet their need. Lastly, in addition to this, we also have a focus on reducing food leftovers for immediate relief. In regards to food leftovers, many businesses, including our own CAF, at the end of close of business day, have viable food. They have a lot of resources and a lot of love to give, and we have students in immediate need. Figuring out how to reallocate and creating very selfless and creative solutions to ensuring that our students are able to receive immediate relief ensures a connection in being able to reach our need effectively and efficiently. In addition to this, finally, we have student leadership and advocacy. Every single one of the people you see standing here are active and passionate people on our campus, members of the student body who are very, very paramount and very, very passionate about enacting and creating change and helping those within our community, including ourselves. Empowering student advocacy ensures that we are capable and amazing leaders who can pioneer problems towards the future. And I want to reiterate that this was a discussion and a project that we were not paid for, we didn't have a class for, we just simply chose and decided that we wanted to make and enact change within our community. I want to start by saying in this section that we realize the importance of creating permanent solutions to persistent problems. This is a sketch, a comprehensive replicable model, and a result of effort derived from a multidisciplinary standpoint, a viable foundation that we believe other institutions can emulate. That brings us to our recommendation for USM, or the University of the System of Maryland. We believe that a comprehensive, multidisciplinary approach template that we are developing here at Coppin State can serve as a model for every other institution to address their own problems on their campuses. Therefore, we would like to introduce to you the No One Goes Hungry initiative. This policy includes a clear responsibility clause that should any student express these 3 words, "I am hungry," it becomes the responsibility of the university to ensure that their need is met within 24 hours, if possible, or by the end of business day, connecting them to the necessary resources and accommodations they need. In addition to this, we ask that you work with us to establish a robust network of safety across every single USM school to ensure that every student in need has their needs addressed and access to nutritional and healthy food. We have learned, we have worked diligently from a multidisciplinary standpoint, and we have provided a replicable model and a clear outline for this recommendation. We would like all of you to help us in this next critical step.
From working in our cross-disciplinary project, I have learned from my friends in cybersecurity that it is important to be efficient, it's important to be clean, and it's important to be streamlined when organizing things such as logistics. It's very important when distributing food.
As a psychology major aspiring to be a sports psychologist, I have learned from a psychological standpoint the impact that hunger can have on our athletes' academic performance as well as athletic performance.
As a computer science major, this has made me really realize about, or really want to learn about how to quantify data. For example, in my machine learning, I'm taking a machine learning class this semester, and in that class, for my final project, I was trying to see how different machine learning algorithms could be able to predict whether a movie could win an Oscar or not. And this project that we're doing right here, it's really made me think about how I could incorporate that sort of learning inside of it, like whether or not, based on different attributes of a student, say whether they qualify for financial aid, what their income is, whether we can predict whether or not they can be hungry.
Hi, as a cybersecurity engineering major, like he said, quantifying data and understanding collective data is very important to our major, as well as understanding that as students, we are more than just numbers. We are people with feelings and with needs and necessities, and that across multiple disciplines, understanding that if we face this problem together, it's a problem solved. It's a problem that we can tackle. And so that's what I learned.
Good job. Thank you. Let's give him a round of applause. Thank you. Stay right there. At this point, Madam Chair, they're open for any questions or comments from you or the board.
Well, thank you for the excellent presentation. And do we have any questions? Yes, Yvette?
Well, first of all, let me say, when I walked in the door this morning, I told you that last night was next level. And I think that today exceeded that. I want to commend these outstanding young people in your presentations. You know, it's hard to capture interest at 8:30 in the morning, but I was positively riveted by everything that you said. My question for you is, when you talk about all of the students that are a part of your program or that are partaking in what you're doing, do you have numbers of how many students that are actually taking part in every single thing that you're offering? What you're offering is phenomenal. I'm just interested in how many they're impacting.
Are you referencing the interdisciplinary research piece?
Yes.
Provost, do you have what that number would be like?
So we had about 40 to 45 Good morning. So we started out, because this is a pilot, with a small group of students, over 45 students, representing about 10 disciplines. And our plan is to scale it once we assess the learning and assess the data that came out of this.
Thank you.
Any particular major they concentrated in?
Andy?
Okay.
Can I ask a question about the program that you mentioned, something about the Nest, trying to get more people to buy homes in West Baltimore?
Yes.
Love this idea. What a great way to integrate a campus with the neighborhood. Such a great idea. But it's probably expensive. So is Coppin fronting all of this money? Or are you able to leverage federal funds, a state grant program?
We're actually leveraging state funds.
Terrific. I'd love to
Yes.
learn more. Thanks
Yes.
for that.
And we did that, Regent, helping the state understand the return on investment for the state. So that was a huge part of us being able to get that program up and running with state support.
Regent Fish?
That's not working.
You're on now. No?
We continue to tout systemness, and these fine students have given us a great example of a program. And I would encourage us as a board and as a system to look at how we can take this program and get it across our campuses, or to look at, I know we have programs at other campuses.
Yes.
You know, look at our need and all the needs and how we carry this mission forward.
Thank you.
Yes, Kathleen, can you take a note? Thanks.
And we do know that our institutions across the board are working on this issue. This is a very complex issue. And so I think that this is an opportunity for us to come together, or our students to come together across institutions, and really lift this issue to a much higher level. So thank you.
Regent Gordine?
I'm going to be repetitive in my comments, but I think that repetition is important here, because I think this is an outstanding example of interdisciplinary work to tackle a problem that has existed for decades across our campuses, across our country. And what these students have done, I really want to commend you students for the work that you've done, for the clarity within which you presented your work today. Your presence is amazing, and it will bode well for you as you move into your careers. I also want to applaud you, President, and to the Provost for encouraging these students to work in an interdisciplinary way. What this demonstrates is that the issue of food insecurity is not a problem that lives in one domain, but that we all have something to offer in order to address it and to overcome it. So thank you all very much for what you've done.
Thank you.
Yes. Regent Stebbins? The red light. Yes.
Am I
ma'am.
on now? All right, at the risk of becoming emotional, I just want to say, as an heir of 2 Coppin graduates, I know how proud they would be to see what's happened to the university since the time they graduated. So I have tried to share this enthusiasm during the morning with my 2 sisters, who also share 2 Coppin graduates as parents. It's wonderful. What's happening here is wonderful. I commend you, and if there's ever anything we can do as heirs of Coppin graduates, please reach out and let me know.
We will. Thank you for those kind words.
Chancellor Perman?
Well, we're all of the same mind, because I was going to say, and now I can affirm what the Regents are asking of us, that the Chancellor's office will absolutely take your No One Goes Hungry initiative to heart. But this one's going to be easy because, as mentioned before, all of our campuses are addressing hunger. So we just need to collate what's going on, and I think you'll be impressed.
The only note I'd really like to add, President, is what's so wonderful about this program is the cross-disciplinary nature of it. So you're getting the experiential learning about how to work in teams across disciplines at the same time you're addressing a really huge problem. And so kudos to this team, to the provost, and to you, because this is what they'll do when they graduate and go into the real world, is have to learn to work across teams. And so this is just wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, I want to give the provost kudos. Stand up again, provost. This is a wonderful program. All right? Wonderful program. Okay. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank
Chancellor.
you.
Great job, students.
We'll now move to the Education Forum, the legal landscape of Title VI in higher education, which will be presented by Attorney Allison Boyle. Title VI of the Civil Rights Act prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, color, and natural origin in any program or activity receiving federal financial assistance, which means nearly every institution of higher education. It is foundational in institutional support for students and communities. Today's session will highlight recent legal developments, evolving federal guidance, and practical considerations for institutions. Our goal is to clarify current requirements and provide insight into what Title VI means for our work. Attorney Boyle, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning. Okay. All right. Well, just as a brief overview, I know you just heard from Chair Gooden what Title VI is. This is the actual text of Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, emphasizing that no person in the United States shall, on the grounds of race, color, or national origin, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. So what does this mean in terms of practicality? The prohibited acts that we think of under Title VI include harassment, which can extend to racial slurs or intimidation, creating a hostile environment, strict prohibitions on retaliation for those who, say, file a complaint under Title VI or oppose discrimination based on race, color, or national origins. And I emphasize prior to this week, because by the end of this presentation, I want to highlight the most recent actions as relate to Title VI coming out of our federal administration. But prohibited practices or practices that disproportionately impact students of certain racial or ethnic groups when not tailored to an educational objective, and then lastly, discrimination. And I'll be fleshing this out more as I go on. I just want to highlight just specifically about national origin, because sometimes there's some confusion about how far that extends, but national origin under Title VI does extend to ancestry, ethnicity, perceived ethnicity, and birthplace. And so our institutions of higher education are required to provide meaningful access to individuals with limited English proficiencies, such as translated materials, interpreters, bilingual support staff. So what are our institutions expected to do? How do they maintain their responsibilities or fulfill their responsibilities under Title VI? We're all in, I know we've spent much time as Regents, you spent much time reviewing policies and procedures. So our institutions are required to maintain clear non-discrimination policies and ensure awareness. So that means making sure that the members of our institutions, faculty, staff, and students understand what those policies mean, know how to access procedures if they experience discrimination, and have an understanding of what a resolution process would look like. Institutions are required to train staff how to recognize and respond to whether they're observing actual discrimination playing out in front of them, or say a student or a staff person or a faculty member reports discrimination to them. Our investigative arms are required to conduct prompt, fair, and thorough investigations of discrimination complaints, and again, ensure that no retaliation occurs against individuals who file those complaints or are witnesses to an investigation. And then lastly, the overall main responsibility is to, when institutions are on notice of discrimination or harassment or retaliation, that they put in place measures to stop, remedy, and prevent any recurrence of further prohibited activity. So what are the areas in which Title VI touches our institutions? So it's really just about every aspect of our institutional activities: admissions, recruitment, financial aid, scholarships, our programs, and so forth. In terms of the avenues of recourse for individuals who, whether, again, we're talking about students, staff, or faculty who are claiming that they've been discriminated against, what are their avenues for recourse? Well, they can pursue administrative complaints with federal agencies, such as the Department of Education. To the extent that aspect is still operating, they can go to federal court. Employees can pursue recovery for damages, such as back pay, promotion, reinstatement. Students are entitled to pursue damages for economic harm, whether we're talking about students who have been expelled or removed from a program due to a discriminatory reason. They can recoup lost tuition, and if there is injury suffered as a result of this discriminating acts, they can pursue compensation for medical expenses, therapy expenses, and the like. In terms of how our federal government enforces and has historically enforced Title VI violations, much like what you've heard before about Title IX violations, typically the DOJ or the Department of Education will threaten institutions with losing federal funding if they fail to comply. And so what the avenue looks like is the Department of Education or DOJ may propose what they call a voluntary resolution agreement. It's not really voluntary, because if you don't comply, then there could be enforcement proceedings and potential for losing federal funding. So I want to just highlight a case that I imagine a lot of folks are familiar with, but I think it's important because, one, it really has set the framework for where our current administration is with Title VI in terms of its rules, regulations, and what it expects of our institutions. So in 2003, there was the Supreme Court case of Students for Fair Admissions versus Harvard and also the University of North Carolina. And in that case, a group of students that were the plaintiffs got together and filed a complaint against the institutions alleging discriminatory admissions practices. And so the question before the lower court was, may institutions of higher education use race as a factor in admissions? And if so, did the institution's race-conscious admissions process violate Title VI of the Civil Rights Act? So now the lower courts had found for the institution, saying that race could be used as a factor. It recognized that the role of race, along with many other factors, was reasonable and tied to a compelling interest that institutions are entitled to promote a diverse student body. But what the Supreme Court did in this case was they applied what we call a strict scrutiny standard. And Harvard, along with UNC, were required to establish a compelling reason, that there was a compelling government interest in the policies, and show how that they were narrowly tailored to achieve that interest. So that's a lot of like legal mumbo jumbo there, but really it means it's a really high standard that the institutions had to demonstrate that the role of race in being considered in their admissions process sufficiently met a very measurable test that the court could look at. And so Harvard had identified these following educational benefits that it was pursuing: that that having a diverse student body was tied to training future leaders in the public and private sectors; that this would help prepare graduates to adapt to an increasingly pluralistic society. But it was tied to better educating its students through diversity, producing new knowledge stemming from diverse outlooks. I think all aspects and goals that many of our institutions value through their DEI programs. So what the court held, though, was that the institution's stated reasons for using race as a factor in admissions violated the Equal Protection Act of the 14th Amendment, as well as Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. They found that, the court found that it was really kind of this mushy criteria that the court wasn't able to measure how race really tied into these goals. They concluded that the racial categories were overly broad and that institutions failed to demonstrate that connection between the categories of students and the institutional goals. They concluded that the use of race in the negative, meaning to exclude applicants, therefore violated the Equal Protection Act. Harvard's consideration of race could be used as, could result in stereotyping, and that really, there was no endpoint to the use of race-based admissions to achieve desired diversity, which comes from the history about affirmative action, that initially was the goal of affirmative action was to correct racial discrimination. And they found that this had been, they talked about in the case that about how these criteria had been used for a long time to correct a problem, and they didn't see an end in sight for it. Okay, so however, and I highlight this particular clause in this Students for Fair Admissions case because it continues, it's an important aspect in that I think it really does emphasize that this does not mean that race can no longer be considered or that the idea of striving for a diverse student body is illegal or unlawful. And so I'm just going to read it to you. I know you can all read, but I think that they're really important words. Nothing in this opinion should be construed as prohibiting universities from considering an applicant's discussion of how race affected his or her life, be it through discrimination, inspiration, or otherwise, but a benefit to a student who overcame racial discrimination. For example, it must be tied to that student's courage and determination. In other words, the student must be treated based on his or her experience as an individual, not on the basis of race. Okay, so where does that get us now? That's the Students for Fair Admissions case really has fed into many of the initiatives out of the current administration. So early this year, on February 14th, the Department of Education issued a Dear Colleague letter regarding the federal enforcement on Title VI, and it purported to explain the role and the interpretation of Students for Fair Admission, and stated that rates may not be used in all of these areas or aspects of student life that I talked about earlier, so admissions, hiring, promotion, compensation, and so forth. It went on to say that it was trying to clarify the application of federal anti-discrimination laws to programs or initiatives that may involve discriminatory practices, including those labeled as DEI programs. Now, I think that is where we have there's a lot of litigation that you've heard about in prior meetings, and that I'm sure you're all aware of just by being present in our world today, that there's a lot of disagreement over that particular statement. It did acknowledge the Student for Fair Admissions standard about strict scrutiny, that must be applied in terms of considering the role of race in any factor in our academic settings. And it acknowledged, it sort of pulled from the Student for Fair Admissions case and highlighted that states that the only viable, compelling interests could be limiting to remediating specific instances of past discrimination that violated the Constitution or statute, which is sort of a little bit unclear as to exactly what that means, given the state of affirmative action. But that was in the Students for Fair Admissions case, and it also acknowledges that a compelling interest, because this was cited in Student for Fair Admissions, of avoiding imminent and serious risk to human safety in prisons, such as a race riot. Okay. All right. So with all of that as where we've led to up to prior to the prior week, what are the implications for our institutions? Scholarships based on race would likely violate the equal protection. And so folks might be aware that our institutions and our foundations have had to take a look back at some donations that date back many years that may have been donated to benefit specific racial or gender categories. Other implications, hiring practices to enhance diversity of specific groups would likely be found to violate federal law, whereas hiring decisions where the focus is on finding candidates able to work with diverse populations is permissible. So there are nuances here, but again, I want to emphasize that, from a legal standpoint, and I'm expressing to you some of the positions that the Maryland Office of the Attorney General has taken, is that these are some of the nuances that are permissible. Focusing on the protected characteristics of applicants is not permissible. However, again, citing from that language I shared with you from the Students for Fair Admissions case, recognition of how an applicant's cultural background has influenced their life is permissible. And access to facilities or resources, so long as they are open to all students, would not be in violation. And so I've had some time to share with our diversity leaders, with Dr. Lee at our institutions, about how we can consider diversity in terms of affinity groups or things like this, cultural centers, and what we can do to permit them to continue but still stay in line with Title VI. Other implications, and this came out of a recent issuance from the Department of Justice. So proxies for protected characteristics are acknowledged. So admissions essays that are reviewed and race is presumed and then used to further a mission of increasing diversity with respect to race would be problematic. However, use of admissions essays that are tied to the mission of providing access to students of all backgrounds should be permissible. Already talked a little bit about the groups and gatherings. And again, just getting back to student or institutional obligations. So where institutions learn that despite an openness to all, let's say we're talking about a cultural group or a lounge center, even if it's expressly explained as being open to all, if our institutions are on notice that some students feel excluded or that it seems to be creating a hostile environment, that would be something that our institutions would have to respond to. All right. So I mentioned prior to this week at the beginning of this, just this week, the Department of Justice issued its final rule regarding disparate impact claims. And I just want to take a moment just to give a quick overview of what disparate impact means. Disparate impact theory is a discrimination theory that dates back to the 1970s from a case that where the Supreme Court in Griggs versus Duke Power Company recognized this theory. Which was basically acknowledging that where employers or academic institutions have a policy that appears to be neutral in its face, so it's designed with good intentions, but it has a disproportionate impact. And then the case in Griggs that involved a power company who was using standardized testing to assess whether or not their applicants could be eligible for employment or suitable for promotion. And it found that these tests had no connection to the requirements for actually performing those jobs, and they were disproportionately having a disproportionate negative impact on the hiring and promotion of Black employees. And so what the court did, it recognized this theory that as employers, it's not that employers can't use standardized tests or facially neutral assessment tools, but where they have a disparate impact, that's going to be problematic. So it's a theory of discrimination that removes the intent element, meaning that a practice doesn't have to be intentionally discriminatory, but that's the effect. It's problematic. Well, what the DOJ has now said is that cannot be anymore in the context of Title VI. So I want to just talk to you about and just give you just more examples. I mean, so I think this disparate impact theory, we see this dating back in education and the use of affirmative action. We see the application of disparate impact analysis to challenging educational students, and we see this more, I think, in the K through 12 settings, but where institutions are disciplining underrepresented minorities at higher rates than white students. We've seen this play out in cases involving banks where they have practices of discouraging minorities from applying for loans. Those are all theories where disparate impact has come into play in finding that discrimination has occurred. So what does this rule do? There are specific regulations that this rule has rescinded. And I just want to note that many proposed rules that come out of the federal administration provide an opportunity for notice and comment. That didn't happen here. The administration took the position that it was unnecessary, and that they've used this in the past to correct legally flawed regulations or statutes, and that was the basis on which they allowed this to go forward without comment. So what this has done is there are provisions in the regulations that acknowledge that discrimination that has discriminatory effects, regardless of intent, was permissive. Those have now been removed. It disallows plaintiffs to the use of disparate impact theory in cases only over which the DOJ has jurisdiction, so entities that receive federal funding through a federal agency. So this does not apply to private actions at this time. So Title VII is an employment law that applies both privately and publicly to prohibit discrimination on the basis of sex and race. But it won't apply there. So it'll, who knows how this is going to play out legally with these sort of two different theories that historically have been tied together. We'll have to wait and see what this looks like. And so now what this means is that plaintiffs must demonstrate and rely solely on an intent to improve, an intent to discriminate in order to succeed on a discrimination claim. Statistics alone are not acceptable. So I've given you a lot of context to where we're at with Title VI, and I just want to end and close out just with some sort of highlights of what I think this still means. Title VI still prohibits discrimination based on race, color, and national origin, and our institutions maintain policies to uphold the same. On the related topic of diversity, equity, inclusion, we can still continue to value diversity, equity, and inclusion. In admissions, our institutions can still ask and consider how applicants' backgrounds have influenced and shaped them. States, including Maryland, continue to bring legal challenges related to federal Title VI and DEI actions. And then just most recently, just because this literally happened yesterday, the Attorney General's office decided to submit further comment in opposition to a proposed rule that relates to the IPEDS survey. So it's the statistical reporting that institutions are required to do annually that provide statistics about their student applicants and populations. There's a rule now that has come out of the administration that is proposing to require institutions to disaggregate their data and then also show how race and gender tie to certain things like standardized tests, family income, and a couple other categories. So the AG's office is submitting a comment in opposition to that, along with, I think, about close to 20 other states that, under the belief that this is really just a way to kind of poke more and go on a fishing expedition to see what institutions are doing with regard to admissions as it relates to race and gender. There are some other logistical reasons for why it's going to be problematic. It's going to be incredibly burdensome if we have to go through it. But anyway, that is where we are at, and that's what I have for you. That concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Allison? Andy?
So thank you for that. Terrific. Are there any policies that you have identified that the board has that we need to either amend immediately because of this, or that we need to set up a work group to consider? Obviously, we don't have policies on the books that the Department of Education could look at and say, you guys are now out of compliance, we're going to do an investigation. So is there anything we need to think about ASAP in terms of the policies, making sure they're aligned with the department's or the Justice Department's new definitions?
So let me answer in the question of if we're answering this before December 9th. I would say no. I would want to just do a little more review to make sure that there's nothing in our non-discrimination policies that might conflict, but I suspect not. But we'll certainly get on that, and I'm sure we'll be having conversations in the AG's office about that.
Regent Wood?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you very much for your very clear and excellent clarification of these issues.
You're welcome.
My comment is that I think these issues clearly present some real challenges for our presidents. And I would just like to encourage this board to do what we can to support our presidents as they deal with these challenges.
Thank you, Regent Wood. Regent Edwards?
Good morning.
Am I on now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Good morning. Thank you so much for presenting the legal framework, and I think I'd like to follow up on Regent Wood's feedback in terms of how are we bringing the college presidents, their legal counsel, their DEI leads in their institutions, and helping to think through how to do the great work that they do around creating really inclusive campuses in this framework. So it's one thing to know what you can and cannot do. It is a different thing to have guidelines around how to do what you want to do within those legal constraints. And to have some learnings around that to make sure that they feel supported in that, and so that we continue to meet our shared goal of very inclusive campuses across the state of Maryland. And of course, I'm particularly concerned about what this means for our HBCUs. So how are we going back to systematizing, scaling, creating those supportive guidelines to the how? I understand what the what is, but I want to make sure that we're going very deeply in this time around supporting the how to continue to do the work that we all want to see done.
Well, I think some of your question, I think, probably is more directed at our institutional leaders, but I will speak to you from the legal counsel side. So the Attorney General's office, one just for, as you're coming on board, and welcome, has a federal action unit that is very invested and involved in all matters related to higher education in terms of the legal landscape. And so that there's litigation, and you'll hear a briefing on that later today. But as far as how we work with the institutions, the AG's office meets with legal counsel every other week and provides briefings, and it's an opportunity for counsel to have conversations about issues on their campuses that relate to these issues and others. We also have, I can say that I've been involved with, as I mentioned, working with Dr. Lee with talking to diversity leaders on the campus. So I see Dr. Wren coming up because she can speak to this as far as what is actually going on, and I think to your question about the how we're supporting better than I can. So.
Thank you. Thank you for the question, Regent Edwards. As Allison just alluded to, we gather the system-wide DEI folks on a regular basis, and so those conversations are ongoing, and at a later point we can give you an update on what those kinds of conversations have been. We also gather regularly with our VPs of Student Affairs and our provosts to ensure that we're keeping up robust conversations. As for the question related to HBCUs, I think it would be more appropriate for one of the HBCU presidents perhaps to reply.
Okay, Regent President Bro, sorry.
Well, that's fine, you can promote me. I'm ready. Thank you, Madam Chair. On behalf of the CUSP as well as HBCUs, I'd like to add, first of all, welcome to the Board of Regents. We meet regularly as presidents and chancellors. With the chancellor, we meet once a week to talk about leadership issues, including those that are being discussed in this presentation here. I'd like to applaud the chair of the board as well as the chancellor that meets separately with the HBCUs as a cohort to address any issues that are impacting our campuses. And we've had robust conversations around issues where grants and contracts have been eliminated and how to best address that. So we've been leaning forward, being proactive, trying to navigate as best as we can as it changes. And I'd like to applaud also the AG's office, who reached out early on prior to changes happening to say, we want you to know we're here for you, and making sure that we are engaging with the AG's office. So they've been on top of issues concerning all of our institutions, but specifically looking at the possible impact to our HBCUs. So just wanted to acknowledge that, and would be glad to share any additional comments. And I'll ask my colleagues from the HBCUs if they would also like to offer additional comments.
President Anderson.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and welcome to the new Regent. I also want to add, and thank you, President Bro, for explaining, we also make sure that at our campuses, our General Counsel meets regularly with the AG and with the USM, and one of the things that most of us do with our General Counsel is that information comes back, we share it among our cabinet. And so we have been proactively looking at all of these issues. Obviously, with this new ruling that just came down December 9th, my cabinet won't meet again until next week, but we'll be looking to the USM on how do we look at some guidance and how do we move forward with this in this particular space. So it is one that we try to make sure we're being as proactive as we can. But also, as we know, this has been a year of major challenges from this administration coming down on a regular basis. So I thank our Chancellor from the standpoint of our weekly meetings have been so helpful in making sure we can gather together and hear from among all of us how are we tackling these particular issues and coming up with good strategies. So thank you very much for pointing that out, and I appreciate all the support from the board.
Regent McMillan.
I'm just curious to give perspective on sort of the long view here, given the political vicissitudes that we are going through. How do you plan for the fact that, 3 years from now, we may have a whole different administration, a whole different approach to this stuff? I'm just curious, how do you be proactive with the fact that this stuff could be turned upside down 3 years from now?
You may be asking a question that's a little bit above my pay grade,
Yeah.
but I will share from experience that as far as when we look at Title IX, because that's an area where we've seen the similar flip-flopping from the Obama administration to Trump to Biden back to Trump. And, from as far as how the AG's office has addressed that, I mean, we're keeping up with revising policies and procedures to make sure we're in alignment. And I think also trying to help our institutions walk the line of figuring out ways to stick to their values and what they are, how they define their institutions and what's important to them in a way that still walks that legal line. So I don't know if that really answers your question. I think we're sort of rolling with the punches. Yes, as President Anderson just said, it's a balancing act, and we're just trying to navigate our way through. And
Chancellor Perman.
I think she said it, Regent McMillan. Through the vicissitudes, we stick to our values. We'll be ready for what comes.
Any other comments or feedback? Well, Allison, seeing none, thank you for a robust discussion.
You're welcome.
And for sharing with us how Title VI is changing, and we'll expect more changes. And for Regent Edwards and our other new regents, we have added a segment in closed session where we talk in more detail on the legal things that are occurring, which was an ad we made with the change in administration. So Allison will be back. You'll see her this afternoon. We'll move on now to the reports of the Chancellor. Chancellor Perman, you're up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. Regent Edwards, I join everybody else in welcoming you. I look forward to our work together again. This is our second time around, and I'm happy about that. Regent Edwards served very well during my time at UMB as a board member, so delightful to have you back in the fold. I also want to welcome Tim Miner, Vice Chancellor for Advancement, President and CEO of the USM Foundation. Tim actually joined us in September, and many of you know him, but this is his first board meeting. Tim, we're thrilled to have you in the USM family. I also want to share two pieces of exciting news. First, it was announced yesterday that President Darrell Pines has been elected a Fellow of the National Academy of Inventors. That is a rare distinction, and all of us who are privileged to be Darrell's colleagues know how well deserved it is. So congratulations, Darrell. And second, one of Dr. Pine's students, whom we call Regent Druvak Marani, has won a Marshall Scholarship, one of the world's most prestigious academic honors. Regent Marani plans to study global security at the University of Glasgow, and since he sees that as not enough yet, he will then study cybersecurity at King's College London. So Druvak, well done. We're proud of our student regent. As we close out the calendar year, you all know how often and how loudly, I hope, I'm sounding the alarm about untenable pressures on our revenues, pressures that really imperil the work we do. And so I'm going to start my report with gratitude to others that are helping us, the philanthropists, the friends who've stepped into the breach in what's coming as something of a tradition at these board meetings. I get to congratulate another of our universities on a landmark gift from philanthropist Mackenzie Scott. Ms. Scott's $50 million unrestricted gift to Bowie State University is the largest single gift in the university's history and brings Ms. Scott's total giving to BSU to $75 million. Spend it well, Dr. Bro. A $50 million gift from civic leader Tom Golisano will fund, you're going to know how happy this makes me, pediatric care at the University of Maryland Medical Center and UMB School of Medicine. That's the largest gift in their history. The money is going to support breakthrough science, education, equitable, compassionate care for Maryland's children. At the University of Maryland College Park, a $52 million gift from the A. James and Alice B. Clark Foundation is going to dramatically expand scholarships for engineering students and deepen collaborations with the world's top engineering schools. This gift and many more are the seeds of College Park's new $2.5 billion fundraising campaign, its most ambitious yet, in support of a scholarly community united in doing good. So congratulations, President Pines. Look, doing good, that's the whole point of this, the whole point of us, the university system. And every year we welcome into this community more people who want to do good with us. With its newest graduates crossing the stage this winter, UMGC is establishing a record-breaking class of 2025. Not only did 18,000 students earn credentials over this last year, they earned them more quickly than ever before. UMGC's average time to degree completion dropped below 3 years for the very first time. So I want to congratulate Dr. Whitehead, UMGC's Chief Academic Officer, representing President Fowler here today. A couple of months ago, we celebrated our host, Coppin State University, and the President alluded to this, for actually defying national trends with a surge in enrollment among men. This is a crisis in national higher education. We love having our women students, of course, but we are struggling with attracting men to a higher education, which has huge implications. Discussion for another day. Today, Coppin is also celebrating growth in Hispanic learners, with duly enrolled Hispanic students climbing fivefold, transfers tripling, and as you heard, the Baltimore Business Journal has just recognized Coppin as Greater Baltimore's fastest growing college. The people who need to know about Coppin State know about Coppin State. So that's an incredible endorsement. So Towson University and the University of Baltimore have been named to Phi Theta Kappa's 2025 Transfer Honor Roll, which is a recognition of the care and planning they put into pathways for transfer students. Not just opening doors, but walking the students through them. So I want to recognize President Ginsburg, Ms. Agenbaugh, for championing transfers and showing how smoothly, seamlessly it can be done. And I should also note that Towson earns accolades on the other end of the student experience. The university's Career Center ranks in the top 2% of schools nationwide for connecting students to meaningful career opportunities. And when these students entrust their education to us, here's what they're getting. A few examples. Salisbury University is launching the system's first music therapy major, training students to use music within a therapeutic relationship to foster patients' emotional development and physical health. Some of you know that I serve on the board of the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. We were just talking about this yesterday, and the implications for music therapy and art therapy to getting a kid well. So I'm thrilled about this, Eli, and please congratulate President LaPree. Now, while we're on the Eastern Shore, UMB's Rural MD Scholars Program, physicians are needed on the Eastern Shore, will prepare medical students who are intentionally, purposefully trained in rural medicine. They are going to spend, these students, in their commitment, at least 4 years of post-training practice in underserved shore communities. I hope it's all right for me to say this, Bruce. As somebody who grew up on the Eastern Shore, I can only imagine how good this makes you feel. It makes us feel good as well. So congratulations. And staying on the Eastern Shore, we're not only intending to train up healthcare providers for us, we're planning to train up folks who take care of the animals that are so important to us. So with sights on launching Maryland's only school for veterinary medicine, it'll be the second HBCU nationally. UMES has begun preparing for next year's accreditation site visit by the American Veterinary Medical Association. This is a big deal, and your team, your plans will shine, I'm sure. Thank you. Now let's go out west. With an agreement signed last month, students at Frostburg, this is still in the health arena, now have a smoother pathway into the professional schools at the Lake Erie College of Osteopathic Medicine, and that's going to help to close critical provider gaps in Western Maryland. So thank you, President Smith. And all of these students are part of a bigger community. It's a community of ideas, of inquiry and curiosity. I want to point out that UMSES was just honored with the Coastal Stewardship Award by the Coastal and Estuarine Research Federation that recognizes 100 years of advancing scientific knowledge, public education, solutions in coastal zone health worldwide, and congratulations, President Morales-Wilhelm. I also want to point out that at UMBC, they debuted an environmental sensor made out of simple balsa wood, inexpensive, sustainable. It's a sensor cheap enough to be deployed in high numbers, which will give us a more comprehensive read on the pollutants causing us harm. So that's science and it's service, and thank you, President Shears Ashby. As part of NIH's new research program to understand the human virome, the viruses that live in and on our bodies, UMB is going to use a $15 million grant from the NIH to build a cutting-edge data center that closes the knowledge gap in what is really a poorly understood area of bioscience. And I'm going to mention a new NSF-funded study at Towson with national and international partners, which is redefining the way scientists think about how living creatures influence the planet, exploring Earth system engineering across geologic time. Now, I'm happy to announce those federal grants because it tells us one very important thing, Regents. Despite all that has rained down on us, our faculty, because of the leadership here, remain undaunted. They're continuing to compete. They're continuing to compete in numbers larger than ever. We're not giving up. Now, I want to talk about making, just in addition to thinking and creating new knowledge, what are people making around the system? So Salisbury Shore Hatchery has long invested in campus and community entrepreneurs. So taking top prize in student competition this year was Leah Osman and her SAT, ACT prep company. She's got a company, it's called MathBridge. Bowie State brought together 117 colleges and universities for the 5th annual HBCU Plus Entrepreneurship Conference, which focused on deep tech, AI, and innovation. And the universities at Shady Grove launched its Bernard Series for entrepreneurship, sharing lessons in creating opportunities, navigating setbacks, staying curious in business and in life. Thank you, Dr. Kademian. College Park earned a number 7 spot in the national ranking of best schools for undergraduate entrepreneurship, reflecting its commitment to developing design skills in all disciplines that serve our most complex challenges. And those challenges, they're global, but they're local too. And for our universities, engagement is really what matters most. At the USM at Southern Maryland, Dr. Nesbury joined the presidents of the College of Southern Maryland and St. Mary's College to discuss with up-and-coming leaders how pathways and partnerships not only prepare students for meaningful careers, but strengthen the economic and social fabric of the region. Great leadership, Dr. Nesberry. And the USM at Hagerstown is leaning into its role not only as a leader, but as a neighbor. The center ushered in the holiday season, coordinating toy drives, food drives, winter coat drives, holiday meals for families in need. They sponsored gift giving for local children. That's the right thing to do, Dr. Ashby. It makes us friends. Look, I know this has been a challenging year. Support we've long relied on has dried up a lot. People on our campuses and our communities feel vulnerable. They're scared. Values, which we talked about a few minutes ago, values we've long held close, we're holding them, but they're being questioned. But folks, we haven't withdrawn, we haven't shrunk, rather we've opened up, we've expanded, we've supported those who need us, who rely on us, we've affirmed through our actions that matter more than our words, what we believe and who and what we stand for. In a year when international study and scholarship were targeted, UMBC, for example, sent more students abroad than ever before. When federal research dollars were threatened, as they continue to be, UMB and College Park established robust bridge funding to safeguard critical research capabilities and support affected scholars. When federal workers were laid off, several of our universities created very deliberate pathways to help them pivot to new careers, new fields, new degrees. When U.S. service members and veterans needed help pivoting themselves, we harnessed resources and programs to serve the very folks that serve us. We're not made to be timid. We're not made to shrink. We're made to be of service, and through that service to change lives. You know, sometimes doing that feels equal parts important and impossible. But I know I speak for everyone here in saying that we look to a new year with hope, with optimism. I certainly thank you all for doing the impossible every single day. Madam Chair, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Chancellor. Any questions or comments for the Chancellor? Seeing none, we'll move on to the council reports. We'll start with the Council of University System Faculty, and today Dr. Finch will present that report.
Thank you, Chair Goodwin, and good morning, Chancellor, Regents, and Presidents, and thank you to President Jenkins and your faculty and staff and students for hosting us last night. I enjoyed learning about the campus and exciting things that are happening there. I'm Dr. Maida Finch. I'm the Vice Chair of CUSIF, and I'm presenting the CUSIF report today on behalf of the Chair, Dr. Ryan King-White. And before I begin, Ryan encouraged me to introduce myself to you. I am a professor at Salisbury University and the Literacy Studies EDD Program Director, which offers synchronous online learning. My husband and I moved our then young family to the Eastern Shore in 2012 so that I could accept a position in the Seidel School of Education at SU. I began my career as a middle school teacher, which I loved, and I knew when I decided to pursue a career change to higher education, I wanted to do so at an institution that placed a high value on teaching, because that is what I most love doing. And I found what I wanted and more at SU. So today I just want to briefly share with you how graduate education at SU, and particularly the Literacy Studies doctoral program, is helping students advance their careers. The first doctoral cohort began classes in fall 2014, and I encouraged graduate students who demonstrated an interest in literacy research to consider applying. One student who decided to do this is Chelsea Taylor, now Dr. Taylor. And when she entered the program, Chelsea was a secondary English teacher in Wicomico County schools with only a couple of years of experience. As a doctoral student, and in part because of it, she earned a position as a literacy coach in the same school. Her dissertation research explored the role of drama-based pedagogies in supporting students' meaning-making of literature. And she has presented this research locally and nationally, and this year she and I published an article in English Journal, a peer-reviewed publication of the National Councils of Teachers of English. Dr. Taylor also now adjuncts in the graduate education programs. A second student currently enrolled in the program I'd like to tell you about is Malcolm Bracher. And I first met Malcolm when he was an undergraduate music education student, and I was his advisor. I enjoyed getting to know this curious and enthusiastic young man, but lost touch with him once he graduated. I was delighted to encounter him again when he earned his master's degree from SU, and I suggested he consider coming back to SU for a third time for his doctorate, and he has. Malcolm is a music teacher in Worcester County Public Schools and in his second year of the doctoral program. He is interested in multimodal literacy, and I look forward to seeing how his research develops as he enters advanced coursework and then the dissertation phase. And finally, I'd like to share that this week we celebrated the 43rd successful dissertation defense of our students. So thank you for letting me share these two examples. And now on to the report. The Executive Committee met on November 12th to plan for the Tri-Council and discuss key issues in CUSIF, namely the progress of the USM bullying policy, the research policy, legislative policy related to C7, and the Awards Committee roster was finalized. The Tri-Council's meeting, which occurred in November, and we'd like to thank Regents Leggett, Marani, and Wood for their participation, Vice Chancellor Clark, as well as Chancellor Perman and President Pines for taking the time to do so as well. Thank you, CUS Chairperson Prouty and your team for organizing such a nice event. The in-person gathering allowed us to discuss complex issues like AI usage, Advocacy Day strategies, opportunities for collaboration across the USM, and potential issues, specifically fiscal, that are on the horizon. I have some committee updates to share as well. The Awards Committee received applications in November and has reviewed them and voted on the faculty nominations, and they will submit them, if they have not done so already, to the Board of Regents. The Ed Policy Committee celebrates the popularity of its AI unscripted podcasts. These are fabulous. I'm really enjoying them. But the AI unscripted podcasts hold the top 5 most listened to episodes of the Moving the Needle podcast, and that includes over 7,300 listens. And it is also, the committee is also reviewing the revisions that were submitted to us about the USM bullying policy. In Faculty Affairs, they completed their campus safety report, which was discussed at our recent general body meeting in December. And they also collaborated with Legislative Affairs to schedule and hold a follow-up meeting with Vice Chancellor Allison Rinn and Allison Boyle of the OAG to discuss the process behind revisions to this Section C7 policy. And I would like to just thank Vice Chancellor Rinn and Attorney Boyle for making time to meet with them. In addition to their collaboration with Faculty Affairs, the Legislative Affairs Committee has created initiatives to support efforts in Advocacy Day, and specifically, they are collating the home counties and districts for members of CUSIF so that we can be more organized about pairing constituents with lawmakers during that day. The Research Committee has reached out to Vice Chancellor Michelle Masucci in order to facilitate collaboration between the USM and any initiatives the committee undertakes moving forward. Finally, the Rules Committee elected a chairperson, that's yours truly, and we're looking forward to reviewing standard operating procedures in an online environment. In particular, we're going to spend time looking at the process by which online resolutions can be created, discussed, and voted on in a more efficient manner. Thank you again for allowing me to share these remarks and for being here today. I wish you all a happy, peaceful, and restful holiday winter break. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Finch. Any questions for Dr. Finch? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the Council of University System Staff. Mr. Prouty.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Another good morning to Chair Gooden, Chancellor Perman, Regents, presidents, and all others in attendance, and a special thank you to President Jenkins for hosting us this cycle. Since our Halloween meeting, CUS has only had one business meeting, and that was just this past Tuesday. As a result, the report in front of you reflects the outcomes of the 2025 Joint Councils meeting that you just heard a little bit about, along with some nods towards some previously reported items of interest to system staff. I'll close with some unofficial highlights from this week's meeting and hope to give more substantive comments at our February board meeting. On November 20th, CUS participated alongside CUSIF and USMSC in the 2025 Joint Councils meeting, which was held at College Park in the Stamp Atrium. On behalf of the organizers of that meeting, I would like to thank Regents Leggett, Marani, and Wood for their time and insight as a part of the Regents panel. Additionally, Assistant Vice Chancellor for Government Relations Andy Clark presented and laid the groundwork for the 2026 Joint Councils Advocacy Day, now scheduled for February the 18th, 2026. For students, faculty, and staff who are new to the system or to the higher level operations of the system, this session, led by Andy, is always incredibly helpful and informative. So I'd like to thank Andy and the larger Office of Government Relations for keeping the Joint Councils informed and moving forward in their advocacy for the USM with the state. Of course, I would also like to thank Chancellor Perman for his State of the System address and College Park President Pines for his welcome to College Park and answering questions from the Joint Councils, as well as the limited edition Kermit the Frog pins. A major idea that came out of the Joint Councils meeting is the consensus around AI-focused policy across our campuses. Students, faculty, and staff agree that there is not satisfactory guidance around the use of AI, either for instruction or productivity at our campuses. Additionally, a general feeling exists that the use of AI is contributing to a lack of community building among students. It's my understanding that the System Office is working to develop a framework for the future discussions around these ideas. I'm excited for this system shared governance to be included in this process and eagerly await any update that I can share with my fellow council chairs and bring back to our groups on this important issue. CUS representatives have asked me to remind the board of some ideas related to communication and equity across our campuses in lieu of a more substantive report on our business meetings. Foremost, CUS leadership has still gotten no feedback or engagement from the Office of the Governor, despite repeated attempts to connect regarding an effort to build a relationship with education policy leads. I'd like to thank Vice Chancellor of Government Relations Susan Lawrence for her continued guidance and effort here. Next, CUS will be administering the State of Staff Shared Governance Survey. This survey will be made live in February, and I hope we will be able to discuss the important results of this at the June board meeting. We hope that the results of this survey will serve to highlight both the successful communication channels as well as areas for growth among our campuses. Next, CUS is eager to finalize best practices around campus crisis funding for campus employees. We've been working alongside the System Office of Administration and Finance, and I'd like to thank that office, and particularly Dan Channon, for continued collaboration with CUS leadership in this endeavor. As discussed last time, CUS continues to explore the extent to which duplicative fees have been eliminated for campus employees seeking to take advantage of tuition remission, as well as the extent to which campuses have made ombud services available to campus employees. The CUS Staff Resources Committee continues to reach out to campuses to gather information on these topics, and we can talk more about that later. I do have a few highlights from this week's meeting that I'll report more on in February. We were lucky to have Senior Vice Chancellor for Administration and Finance, Ellen Herbst, deliver a financial overview of the system. It was timely indeed, as it provided incredible context for the Maryland Budget and Taxation hearing on federal funding impacts that took place earlier this week. Additionally, I'd like to note that a better understanding of the financial system that senior leadership at our campuses must operate within stands to buy significant grace and goodwill among staff as difficult times and decisions are made in the months and years ahead. The CUS Executive Board at our last meeting also reported on our initial meeting with the Siegel Consultant Group regarding the system-level compensation and salary policy study. I think I got that right. We're eagerly awaiting continued touch points with the group and look forward to final recommendations they deliver to the system sometime in the spring. And related to the above, there is a growing concern among staff on wage compression at their institutions. Some managers are making as much as their direct reports, and the gaps stand to close further in the coming years. We worry that this compression might contribute to retention issues if not appropriately and equitably addressed. We'll work with the system Office of Administration and Finance to better understand this issue and likely deliver a clear problem statement at the February meeting. The Council of University System Staff meets next on Tuesday, January 13th at the University of Maryland, Baltimore, where Vice Chancellor of Government Relations, Susan Lawrence, will be giving an overview of the state legislative process and what we might expect from the 2026 legislative session. And in closing, I hope we can contribute to improve practices that include staff in decision-making, keep staff informed of changes, and provide opportunities for staff growth throughout the system. And finally, students and faculty in the room might remind me that the semester isn't over yet, but on behalf of the Council of University System staff, I'd like to wish you all a good end of the semester, a good holiday season, and to the extent that you get a break, a good break. I hope that it's restful and prepares us all for the year ahead. Thank you again, Chair Gooden, for the time to share these ideas on behalf of system staff.
Thank you, Mr. Prouty. Any questions for Mr. Prouty? Seeing none, thank you for your report. The next report, Council of University System Presidents, President Breaux.
Good morning. Chair Gooden, Chancellor Perman, Regents, colleagues, and everyone joining us today. It's good to be before you, and happy holidays to everyone. Thank you to President Jenkins and the Coppin State University campus community for hosting us for this meeting. And I want to wish you a hearty congratulations on all of your achievements for the students, faculty, staff, and the surrounding community is quite remarkable. And the students this morning were just so impressive, and I would ask that we give those students another round of applause. They were amazing. Since the October Board of Regents meeting, the Council of University System Presidents met twice, on November 3rd via Zoom and December 1st in person. The November 3rd meeting included the presidents received an update on the Maryland Charity Campaign from the MCC Administrator Lorraine Parks. Senior Vice Chancellor Allison Wren, joined by Assistant Attorney General Allison Boyle, briefed the group on new Title II digital accessibility requirements and led the discussions on proposed revisions to the policy on graduate assistantships and the policy on appointment, rank, and tenure of faculty. Chancellor Jay Perman also provided an update on the Frostburg State University presidential search. On December 1st, at that meeting, Assistant Attorney General Allison Boyle, who you can see has been very busy these days, gave another presentation on the policy on sex discrimination. President and Vice Chancellor Fernando Morales-Wilhelm shared updates on system-wide sustainability action planning, and Chancellor Perman facilitated a discussion of Maryland's early college landscape and opportunities. The presidents heard a presentation from Senator Ben Cardin, former Senator Cardin, and Towson University President Mark Ginsburg on the Ben and Myrna Cardin Center for Civic Engagement and Civil Discourse. Senior Vice Chancellor Ellen Herbst provided an update on the DBM budget meeting, followed by Vice Chancellor Susan Lawrence's preview of the Senate Budget and Taxation Committee briefing scheduled for December 9th. Overall, the meeting is focused on policy updates, as you can tell, legal compliance, sustainability, civic engagement, early college initiatives, leadership transitions, and the state budget and legislative outlook. Our next meeting is scheduled for January 5th. And this concludes my report, but I want to wish you all once again season's greetings, happy holidays, and a very happy new year. And congratulations to my colleagues on all the achievements, your strong leadership, and just congratulations to your teams back on your campuses, the faculty, the staff, the students, alumni, and the entire campus communities who are supporting and staying focused on our mission for public education for the public good. So to you, colleagues, I give you another round of applause for all that you're doing. This concludes our report.
Thank you, President Breaux. Any questions for President Breaux? Seeing none, thank you for your report.
Thank you.
Our final report of councils is the University System of Maryland Student Council, and Today, Drew will present that report.
Good morning.
Good morning.
As many of you will recall, as student regents, both Wright and I serve as ex officio members of the USM Student Council. So I'm happy to share this report on behalf of Jefferson, who was unable to join us this morning. On December 6th, the USM Student Council conducted interviews for the student regent position. In total, we met with 9 candidates, each from a different USM institution. Each did an excellent job in conveying their interest in stepping up to serve in this position. We also appreciated their setting aside time over the weekend to participate in this critical process. The USMSC General Body has voted upon its recommendations, and we have submitted them to Chancellor Perman for his consideration and review. Thank you to UMBC for hosting us and to Dr. Zakiya Lee for supporting the Council in coordinating this meeting and compiling all of the candidates' materials. Thank you as well to our institutional partners who forwarded us such great candidates. This was also the highest number of candidates we've had in quite some time. The USMSC Executive Board is now preparing to launch the 2026 Board of Regents Student Excellence Scholarships. The board met to review the criteria and is now preparing marketing materials to advertise it during the spring semester, and we are eager to receive applications from all of our talented students in the system. This concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Drew. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you for your report. The next order of business is the consent agenda. Decisions regarding which items to include on the consent agenda were made by me and the committee chairs. However, any regent may request that an item be removed from the consent agenda for separate review and approval. Before I call for a vote on the consent agenda, we have a small update to the closed minutes from October 31st, 2025. Regent Marani abstained from the vote for the following items on the consent agenda: the University of Maryland College Park lease request for the Applied Research Laboratory for Intelligence and Security. Regent Marani did not abstain from the vote on the board resolution on Defense Security Service. This correction has been reflected in our board materials online. And so with that change, I move approval of all items on the consent agenda except those requested to be removed. Do I have a second? All in favor?
Madam Chair, before, can I have no objection. I just wanted to call something out to my colleagues in here. It's buried in the Committee on Education Policy report, and I just want to give kudos to UBALT on this. The Education Policy Committee, we're in charge of looking at new program proposals, and it is pretty rare that we get something new in the humanities. And as you've heard me say before, like, this worries me. I think that we have to think really hard about developing the next generation of leaders, to think hard about philosophy and history and so forth. And generally, we approve new programs for lots of good reasons in business and the hard sciences. This time around, we approved one of the first programs I've seen in a long time in the humanities, and it's buried in C23, if any of you are interested. It is preparing leaders in law, philosophy, history to think about how they can be public leaders, whether in the law or other positions of public importance. And so I want to commend the University of Baltimore for thinking about this. And if any of you who have been thinking about civics and the development of future leaders take a look at this, I think you'll be pleased. So thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. And so we have a move and a second, and Regent Smirk, you'll be happy to know that there's a trend nationally at community colleges to bring back the humanities. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next order of business. First up is an update from the Research and Economic Development Committee with information on opportunities for sustainability within the USM related to Vision 2030 of the strategic plan. Regent Woods, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Good morning. It is now my pleasure to introduce University of Maryland Center for Environmental Science, President Fernando Morales Wilhelm, to present information on opportunities for sustainability within the University System of Maryland with regard to the Vision 2030 strategic plan. And I'd like to note that these opportunities have been embedded already through the Research and Economic Development Committee.
Good morning, Regents. Great to see you. Madam Chair, Chancellor Perman, fellow colleagues. Really excited to be here with you today. Maybe the excitement is that the topic I'm going to present is very engaging to me. Maybe the excitement is that it's December. Maybe the excitement is that I feel, oh, we made it through 2025, okay? I think a big part of the excitement is the presentation that we heard earlier from the students. That got me really pumped up. Yeah. So I share that. So I was introduced as president of UMSIS. I don't need to remind most of you that I have this second hat that I've been wearing for about a year and a half, since July of 24 when I joined the system, as Vice Chancellor for Sustainability of the USM. And today's topic is related more to that hat than my hat as UMSIS, even though UMSIS will come up. So I want to talk to you about a proposal for what I'm calling a USM sustainability venture. I'm going to use that word. And I'm calling it HEROES. This is Higher Education and Research Organizations for Environmental Sustainability. And what I'll propose to you today is that in the system, we have 15 HEROES. So let me tell you a little bit about the sustainability opportunity. You know, we have 12 universities, 3 regional higher education centers, plus the university system office. Some of you had heard me say this before. Economic growth, which is a topic that is common to all of our hearts and all of our activities. Economic growth hinges on the environment. There's nothing that we do as a society, from the food that we produce, the power that we generate for the cities that we build, everything hinges on the environment. When we look at Governor Moore's roadmap for economic development of Maryland, focus on 3 big areas, life sciences, technology, and aerospace. I propose to say that all of these 3 hinge on the environment, and the USM is uniquely positioned and has the talent and expertise to deliver big on these 3 areas while diminishing the footprint on the environment, specifically on things like carbon, land, and water. Now, I want to paint the sustainability in a broader context, and if you recall, in a Board of Regents meeting, maybe even going a year back, I think, I shared with you some data collected from the World Economic Forum. The World Economic Forum meets every January, as some of you know, and from time to time they issue what is called the Global Risks Report. And this report basically highlights what are the major risks identified for the private sector, for their businesses. And the World Economic Forum are CEOs of major companies around the world. This is big ag, big oil, tech, all the techs, Google, Apple, are from around the world. So these are CEOs. These are not what I call, tree-hugging, bird-watching, environmental scientists like me, right? They were asked to identify what are the largest risks to businesses worldwide in the short term and the long term. In the short term, they meant 2 years. They color-coded the risks, and the greens here are environmentally related risks. Of the top 10 risks to businesses in the short term, the CEOs identified 2 out of the 10 were environmentally related. Then they were asked a question, how do you visualize these risks in the long term? In the long term, now 5 out of the 10 risks to businesses worldwide are environmentally related. So this really, paints an opportunity when the private sector is telling you that the environment is important, that sustainability is important. This presents an opportunity for universities. And I venture to say that addressing these challenges, no one is better positioned to do that than research universities. No better, and I would venture to say that Maryland, the University System of Maryland, is uniquely positioned to take a leadership role in addressing these challenges. I think we were talking about earlier about how we interact as university presidents with the regents, and and of course with the chancellor. And we have one-on-one with the chancellors that are periodic, right? And so I've been enjoying these meetings over the past year and a half with the chancellor. And at some point, I think maybe probably going back about a year ago, the chancellor will always ask me about UMSIS, how UMSIS going, what are you doing at UMSIS? But then he starts saying, hey, what are you doing with this other hat that you have, right? And I was trying to furiously find what is it that I can do with this role that's really meaningful, right? But I've been researching what many institutions around not only the system but also around the country are doing. The picture of what the Vice Chancellor for Environmental Sustainability at the USM could do started becoming increasingly clear. We have 15 USM institutions, 15 heroes. There are varying levels of practice and investments that have been made, lots of progress. There's varying levels also of awareness and need. Good news, we're doing a lot already. Bad news maybe, and bad using of quotes, I think we can do more in communicating our accomplishments, and I'll have some reflections on that in a second. But I've also been looking at other places around the country. University of California system is very active. The State University of New York is very active. 3 systems, state systems in Texas are very active. The privates, the publics. There's a lot going on, and there's a lot to learn. So what is it that we can do in Maryland that really advances the needle in the state, but also places Maryland in a competitive position to address, the global challenges? Then I started benchmarking, trying to see where the system ranks with respect to these other institutions of what we're doing, and we're doing quite a lot. The Association for Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Education, ASHE, or ASHE, you'll usually refer to, the report is issued every year. They rank sustainability in higher education institutions according to a number of indicators that are there. And it is actually, sustainability is quite a complex enterprise. It's not just about environmental footprint, but it's also, you will see here, issues related, for example, to food and dining. How do we produce or procure sustainable food, energy and climate? It's about curriculum. It's about research. And they issue rankings, and these are, and by the way, the ASHE is not just the United States, it's global. And when we look at ASHE, we're actually looking pretty good in 2 of those categories, in research and in representation and access. The University of Maryland College Park, kudos to my colleague Daryl Pines and other colleagues at College Park. We're top ranked, and this is not in the US, it's in the world. Number 3 in research, Daryl, we're going to have to pump up that so we can get to 1. But I'll give you that you did rank 1 in representation and access, so lots of things to do. But I'll say that out of our 15 institutions, 7 institutions have been ranked in ASHE, so there's an opportunity to continue to go up. And in the 2025 report, actually, again, Daryl was quoted, and the report's not terribly long, so when you're quoted prominently, this means that you're doing something really well. So this is super exciting. We're really well positioned. We need to communicate this more, right? But there's still work to do. And let me tell you where the challenges are. When you think about sustainability, and let's talk about carbon emissions, which contribute to the global problem of climate change. Carbon emissions are divided into like 3 buckets. The first bucket is carbon emissions that are generated directly by our operations. This is our day-to-day operations. We emit carbon. That's referred to as Scope 1, Scope 1 emissions. Scope 2 emissions are emissions that are made by the utilities from whom we buy our electricity, our heat, our power. We look at their carbon emissions, their corresponding share that corresponds to us, and we account those as carbon emissions of an institution. That is Scope 2. Then what we've been learning as we go through this process is that actually the big prize for carbon emissions is what referred to as Scope 3s. Scope 3s are interesting because Scope 3s is about carbon emissions embedded in what you buy. It's your supply chain. Besides utilities, think about the paper, office supplies, everything that we buy, and how those are accounted for in carbon emissions. As it turns out, Scope 3 emissions, by the way, is a relatively new topic of sustainability, but the organizations have successfully tackled or trying to tackle Scope 3s have learned, according to a recent report by McKinsey, Scope 3 emissions can be anything from half to 90% of your total emissions is what you buy. So we fix what we buy, we fix our universities, we fix the planet. That's the logic here. So in general, on average, 2/3, give or take, of carbon emissions is not the Scope 1 and 2, and we need to keep doing those. Those are important, but the big prize is Scope 3s. So how do we tackle Scope 3s? And then we've been talking about artificial intelligence. So how can we use artificial intelligence to accelerate our accounting of Scope 3s? First of all, Scope 3 assessments are time and labor intensive. It takes a lot of time, and I'll show you some examples of how do we measure and try to size up carbon emissions that come from our supply chain. But we can use AI, and there's some technologies and companies out there that actually go through your transactions and compute the amount of carbon that's being generated. So AI could be an accelerator for us in accelerating Scope 3s. Besides that, we are an intellectual powerhouse in artificial intelligence, so we can leverage our strengths in using technology to assess our Scope 3s. Not only that, but, and this is where it's going to get more interesting, is that really we can do this for carbon, but no one's touching the other 2 big environmental footprints that we have, which is water, and it's a big one, and the other one is land. So carbon, water, and land, this is like the triple crown of sustainability. But not even ASHI is starting to think about water and land. We can really, really leap ahead. Let me tell you more specifically. Arizona State University, in terms of being competitive, Arizona State University is perhaps the gold standard of sustainability universities worldwide, not just in the US, but worldwide. And President Jenkins was mentioning earlier that we were going to beat Arizona State in sports. We're going to beat them too in sustainability. But let me tell you, so Arizona State University became carbon neutral on Scope 1 and 2 in 2019. They have been working since 2019 in trying to size up their Scope 3s, and their target is to be carbon neutral in Scope 3s by 2035, so 10 years from now, right? 10 years, it seems like a long time, but it's going to go by very quickly. And I would posit to say that we can not only reach them, but beat them by 2035. University of California, a big university system, also wants to become completely carbon neutral, including Scope 3s by 2045. That's 20 years from now. The SUNY system in New York, 34 institutions, 1.4 million students, perhaps the biggest university system in the country, has a very ambitious sustainability action plan that they published earlier this year. They're not looking at scope 3s at all. So they might become actually not only a competitor, but actually they could become a customer for this venture. So what is the unique value proposition of a venture like this? First, scope 3s is the largest share of emissions. We can transform procurement data into actionable intelligence. And when we use AI to look at our procurement data, it's going to tell us a lot more than just emissions. It can tell us a lot more about a lot of things that we can do with this, right? This solution is extendable to water and land, so it's not just carbon. And it can leverage our expertise and talents and position the USM as an industry leader in sustainability operations. And, I think the goal of being the system that's exemplar for sustainability around the world is within reach. That's the goal. So the way I've been working, with, in the startup world, there's a term that's called skunkworks. You probably have heard about skunkworks. It's a term that was adopted from the aerospace industry when a small group of people in an organization were trying to develop something very, very quick. So in the startup culture, skunkworks is it's an operation that we're really thinking about this as if we're starting, and this is why I'm calling it a venture, as if we're starting a startup initiative within the USM that we can scale, like this would be like a startup company, almost like that. But I've been working with the sustainability teams across all the institutions. We're meeting, we're talking about this. There's a lot of excitement because if we continue to tackle scope 1 and 2 and we make a huge leap in scope 3, I think when we bring all these together, we will be the leader in this. This is a process that's going to take a little bit of time. In one of the meetings that we had trying to put together this concept and this process, I met with the Research and Economic Development Committee of the board, and I'll call the great thinking of Regent Hassan. He liked the plan, but he said, this is moving too slow. He made me think, because I was thinking originally, how do I do this in the 15 heroes of the USM at the same time? But it occurred to me, let me try to do this first in one of the institutions, and then I thought, if the system had an environmental university that we could do this at, and if I knew the president of that university, maybe this could speed this up. So this is what we're going to do, and this is when it gets exciting. We're going to try this at UMSI, small scale. Not only that, we're going to bootstrap the funding for this from UMSIs. We're going to fund this at UMSIs. We're going to get it to work. I'm going to start with carbon only, Regent Hassan. I know you want to do more, right? But I want to start carbon only. We want to test the concept, right? I'm already talking to AI experts with my friends at College Park who have the algorithms that translate carbon, water, and land footprint into from the transactions, right? So we're going to develop. This is like a real thing. We have to develop the software, test it, right? So we're going to do this at UMSIs. I'm going to come back to you, report where we are, what we've learned, and then we're going to start scaling up, right? So my original 2-year time frame that I had exposed is really, I'm going to scale in that period to the entire system, but we're going to generate results much quicker first. So we'll have an initial investment provided by UMSIs as a pilot. We're going to bootstrap the funding to do that. This can scale up and generate revenue. So the one thing I want to, and this is one of the reasons I'm calling this a venture, it's like I didn't want to come here and ask you for money to do something. I'm actually bringing you here something that will generate revenue. If we start doing this, I can tell you there is the amount of customers out there is immense. It's not only universities and university systems. It's companies that are trying to do this. So this is going to be literally like a startup within the USM. I can see, some grants and contracts. There's a Maryland Climate Investment Fund that we could do. And in this process, I'll just mention, by way of coincidence, I just got appointed, well, let me say this right. I was recruited, the Governor Moore started a scientific advisory panel, all right? And, but in May, I received the invitation to be on that panel. I said yes. I got an email yesterday saying that the first meeting of the scientific panel is next week on Monday, and that me as chair of the panel, they would like me to say some opening remarks. I said, what email did I miss? So I had to go back, and I could not find the email where I was, but I'm apparently the chair of the Governor's Scientific Advisory Panel. So, but this gives us an opportunity because this concept that I'm proposing is not applicable just to universities. We can go, think about state agencies in Maryland. All of these, no one is doing scope 3s as far as I can tell. So I'm going to leverage like my triple hat now because it's president of UMC's, vice chancellor, and now I'm chair of this other thing to advance this. And it's not only the USM becoming an exemplar, it's the state of Maryland becoming a sustainability exemplar. The sky is the freaking limit on this, right? And I'm sorry for the use of that language. But anyway, we're going to scale this up in the USM. We're going to monitor, evaluate, and learn over a 2-year period so we can actually scale this up as a venture. We're going to have to develop, key performance indices. There's, of course, the ASHI, where 7 USM institutions are already there, but there are other other organizations that we use to benchmark this initiative. So, listen, folks, let's make this happen. We can really all be heroes. And I want to tell you that I'm super excited about this possibility. I hope you are too. And all I'm asking right now, no money, but support. So thank you very much for your time.
All right, we'll start with Regent McMillan and work our way around.
Yeah, I think the only thing you need is a little more enthusiasm. That might help. But no, it's really great. For us lay folks, kind of give us the good and the bad on the AI side. I'm very curious about that, about how it can certainly help facilitate sustainability, but then you have to deal with the problems of water and energy and all that. I'm just wondering how you tackle that.
Yeah. So there are from my count probably 3 credible outfits out there that are doing scope 3 using AI for private companies. Planet Forward, CO2 AI, and one that I love the name is Ditch Carbon. These are all startup companies that are doing this for private sector. So we're going to use, their technology to benchmark what we develop. So that provides a little bit of validation as to the accuracy and the reliability of our estimates. With AI, and it's always, we're going to have to take this and learn as we go because we just don't know up front how accurate are these calculations. What we do know is that it is an enabler to really accelerate this process because, I don't want to take 10 years to start getting our arms around scope 3. So I think we can do this much quicker.
Mm-hmm. And all that. I mean, that's kind of really, how do you balance all that out with the data center and all the requisite requirements?
Let me try to understand your question. What requisite requirements?
I'm just saying, with this explosion of AI in the water and the energy.
Oh, yes,
demand,
of course.
That's what I'm trying to understand.
No, I got you. Yes, listen, it's we're going to have to account for the implementation of AI in the carbon footprint itself, as well as water and as well as even land. So yeah, that's going to be an interesting an interesting matter to look into that I don't think that's being looked at this point.
And further, it's so interesting to me that you know, we really need a national strategy on this, and every state is pursuing its own strategy. You know, Virginia, Maryland, everybody's pursuing this, and it does not seem to be cohesive in the large picture.
No, listen, we have a great group of researchers in the Department of Geographical Sciences in College Park. These are economists that look at footprint of different economic activities, including the growth of, including computing, on essentially carbon, water, and land, and that is the science and tech that we're going to use to develop, the technology that we'll use. So it will be baked into this from the get-go.
Regent Edwards.
Good morning. Thank you so much for your passion and energy. This means it's just one less thing I need to worry about because you have it covered. You're so excited about this, so thank you. But this AI issue, first of all, I'm one of these people who's very excited about how AI is going to positively impact so many elements of our quality of life. And I do understand that there are some precautions and we have to use it responsibly. However, in this particular context, I'm thinking about AI, the issue of the overuse of land, data centers, and how that technology creates a conflict in the sustainability space, right? So I understand the benefits and how it can be the center of a strategy, but there are also some issues there in terms of kind of, as I said, the land, the data centers, and what it does to the climate, what it does to use of electricity, the cost of electricity.
Absolutely.
How do we kind of reconcile some of those challenges?
So no, thanks for raising this issue because it is precisely. So imagine that we decide we're not going to do this, or we haven't even thought about doing this. The explosion of AI is going to happen anyway, right? The land, the water, the carbon footprint is going to happen anyway. What we will do is that we will be the people there quantifying this and raising our voice and raising the awareness. And not only just the awareness, but also maybe even coming up with measures that can be taken to mitigate the impacts of having this AI explosion. So actually, the fact that AI has an impact on water and land, to me, it's even the more reason for us to do this and to get at the front. Because I'll tell you, no one in ASHI is thinking about this yet in terms of AI and carbon. There's the technology that's out there. It's fairly rudimentary. This is their early days. So this is precisely why I think we can do this.
Regent Lewis.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the presentation. As one who has been voluntold to do things, I feel your pain.
I get you.
Yeah, I understand. But if it's any consolation, I will tell you that passion for an issue will carry you a long way. I feel very good about the fact that you're doing this because it's something that I can see this really, really part of who you are, and anything we can do to be helpful. I do have the concern, the economic concern, obviously, that everyone is talking about, with data centers and so forth. But on the face of it, I think that this has some real promise. So congratulations.
Yeah, no, thanks very much. And I think precisely because this is going to happen whether someone's there to catch the ball or not, the ball will be thrown. So I think our job, and this is why I think that a university system doing this is so important, because we are knowledge generators, we educate the younger generations, and we can be the intellectual thought leaders in this process. That's why I think the timing, it's just so important that it is us that does it, that does this.
Regent Ganella.
Thank you. And I too want to echo the thanks from the fellow regents for, not on? That on? Nope. Is that on? Fantastic. Well, I just want to echo the thanks from my fellow regents for you taking on
this initiative, for the development of this venture, and certainly for the enthusiasm. I'm not sure that we can match that, but you certainly have our support. But I wanted to just simply mention, I would not want to miss the opportunity to suggest that this type of big, bold initiative and venture that you are developing and looking at from a system standpoint, and even bigger than the system, the impact that it can have, is an excellent example of why we need to look at the brand of UMCES.
Yes.
And we need to be thinking
You had to
bigger.
bring this up, huh?
Oh, I'm going to keep bringing it up until we get it done. But this is the type of initiative that we as a system can be doing, that UMCES can be leading, and it's the perfect example of why we need to think about UMCES in a bigger, broader, bolder, more holistic way, and it starts with the brand.
Yes.
And I just encourage you to continue to go down that road and ask us for whatever support we can give in doing that, but this is a perfect time for us to be looking at that.
No, that ask will definitely come, but it gives me an opportunity also to highlight the fact, listen, this is an all of USM effort. These are my skunk works partners in crime, right? You're not my skunks, you're my skunks, skunk works partners in crime, right? So, I'm engaging with the sustainability teams in all of these institutions. I'm engaging with scientists, researchers in all of these institutions. So this is a USM venture. Yes, UMCES is our flagship environmental university, and we'll use it to pilot this, and we'll get to the whole branding and why that makes sense. But to me, this will position the USM as this is why we're gonna, Anthony's here, we're gonna kick ASU's, Arizona State University, in this field as we're gonna do in volleyball or, sports, right? Yes, we're gonna do this. We beat them in basketball. Yes, we're gonna beat them here, so that's twice we're gonna beat them. So, so I think we have an opportunity and a responsibility and the capabilities to do this. So it's hard to have all these conditions meet to do something. So that's what we're going forward. So I'm super excited to see that you're supportive of this. So, which I'm taking you're supportive of this. So.
Regent Wood.
Thank you. I have a comment and then a question. My comment is I also want to thank you for spearheading this really, truly fascinating opportunities. You give the Research and Economic Development Committee inspiration, and the impacts are endless.
Yes, I appreciate that. Thank you.
So my question is, does more nuclear power and wind power provide promise in reducing the carbon footprint, particularly thinking in terms of reducing the Scope 3 footprint?
Yes, so definitely, so I'll talk about nuclear power separately from the others, because I think with nuclear you have the issue of safety concerns that opens a whole other area of concern. However, economically, it's on the table as an option, but definitely solar, wind, geothermal, and where we source it, where our utilities source their energy, is going to come into play in this footprinting exercise. And to be quite frank, I'm very curious as to how UMCES is doing in Scope 3s. I have no idea. I mean, I know what we buy, but I don't know what the footprint is. So this will allow us to learn also internally. In the general area of procurement intelligence, beyond sustainability, just procurement intelligence is an area where we as a system can make significant advancements here.
Great, thank you.
Regent Amler.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Sustainability President. Thank you for, or Vice Chancellor, sorry. But listening and going to pilot and then full scale and condensing the time, really appreciate your taking that effort. The first slide you showed shows that societal change is moving down or getting better from a 2-year trend to 10-year. But what I see all around the world is becoming more dictatorial. The societies are not being given the opportunities. So I'm not sure that the trends reflect the right situation which we are facing now. My question is that the headwinds which are coming towards sustainability now with the change in administration, how would you handle it? Because to me, the cost of material, which you are in scope 3, are going to go up. And it will probably discourage people to really buy those material and make the environment sustainable. So I don't know, there's a concern that exists right now is if people are moving away, regulations are going away, things are not pushing the states or the companies to be more sustainable. That means folks will not focus on the supply chain or things which really, when you're talking scope 3.
Yeah, no, so that's a great reflection, and I think I think it alludes to a comment that I made at the very beginning. I think, I've been an environmental professional for over 30 years, and I think the environmental enterprise needs to be casted increasingly as an economic development, in an economic development narrative, rather than let's protect water, air, the birds, vegetation, et cetera, which is really, really important. But the issue we protect these resources, the issue we want to use them more efficiently, is because they have serious economic value and serious economic opportunity. And I've been telling my colleagues at UMSIS internally that we need to reframe or broaden the research that we do so that it tackles economic development directly. So I think this narrative, plus what I showed you in terms of the private sector, CEOs telling you this is important to us, to our bottom lines. So this is not a political issue. This is an economic development issue, and this is going to appeal to all sides. This is going to appeal to any industry. This is going to appeal to any country. The environment is an asset. It's a capital asset. People talk about natural capital these days, and they account for natural capital in the very similar manner that they account for other assets. So I think moving the environment to that narrative is also a transformation that doing something like this is going to allow us to do. And it also is going to help us with the rebranding and repositioning UMSIS as a, yes, we're going to continue doing Chesapeake Bay, that's important, but how do we become the world's environmental flagship university, which is another goal that I have that I'm not going to talk about today. But that's actually the goal. This is what we want to do.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you for a very excellent presentation.
Yes, have excellent holidays. Thank you.
The next item is an update on the UMGC Ventures reintegration. Dr. Lawrence Leak is here today with us to provide this update. While Dr. Leak is secretary to the UMGC Ventures Board, he's held many roles within the USM and has had a long-standing relationship with UMGC. Welcome, Dr. Leak.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Regents, Chancellor Perman, and distinguished University System of Maryland leaders. As Chair Gooden said, my name is Lawrence Leak, for the record. I am a member of the UMGC Ventures Board, and it's my privilege to bring greetings on behalf of our board chairman, Bill Roberts, and the president of the University of Maryland Global Campus, Greg Fowler. As the chair said, I've had the honor of serving in many roles at UMGC over the years, including its provost and chief academic officer, and more recently as interim president in 2020, just prior to the appointment of Greg Fowler. This morning, I am pleased to present and share with you a brief update on two related matters. One is the reintegration of Accelerad, formerly a Ventures-owned operating company, into the University of Maryland Global Campus, and secondly, the scheduled dissolution of UMGC Ventures as an ongoing nonprofit entity by December 2026, just a year from now. Although these two events and activities are happening simultaneously, I will separate them for the purposes of clarity this morning. Let me begin with the reintegration of Accelerad. I am pleased to announce that Dr. Fowler and the University of Maryland Global Campus are committed to reestablishing full control and oversight of its core technology systems, which supports the university's digital mission. This step will ensure that the university has the internal capabilities to operate securely and effectively on a 24/7 basis. As of the first of this month, just about 10 days ago, UMGC's internal technology team is fully staffed and following a broad comprehensive hiring process. Most positions were posted publicly, attracting highly qualified candidates, including internal candidates, external candidates, and former Accelerad professionals. This process adhered to a merit-based hiring and professional standards, with UMGC and the Ventures HR teams working collaboratively and closely to coordinate these activities to ensure smooth transition. With the technology reintegration complete, UMGC now has a team of top-tier professionals who directly sustain the technology infrastructure originally developed through Accelerad. This technology strengthens student-facing systems, enhances support for adult and military learners, and improves UMGC's organizational agility and capability. Additionally, contracts that were previously held by Accelerad are being transitioned to UMGC using standard Board of Regents procurement procedures. All fixed assets, including hardware and laptops, have been inventoried and transferred as appropriate. Remaining assets are under review, consistent with our December 2026 closeout timeline. Through this work, UMGC Ventures and the university had teams that met weekly to ensure alignment, efficient execution, and timely resolution of issues as they came up. Dr. Fowler and his team deserves recognition for their excellent stewardship of this transition process. On the venture side, reintegration efforts were coordinated and led by two exceptional professionals, Nicole McDonald and Ruben Terrazas. Now let me turn to the dissolution of UMGC as an ongoing nonprofit entity. Alongside with the reintegration of Accelerad, our company, into UMGC, Ventures is proceeding with a thoughtful and orderly wind down of our nonprofit organization. This work is guided by our Ventures Board under the leadership of our chairman, William Roberts. As you recall, UMGC Ventures was created in 2016 to provide a self-sustaining source of capital for the University of Maryland Global Campus. Through the liquidity of portfolio-based assets and to return a portion of those resources to Maryland students through scholarship support. The impact thus far has been substantial. In FY26, the UMGC Ventures Quasi-Endowment Fund has provided nearly $800,000 in scholarship support to approximately 800 Maryland graduate students. Over the past 3 years, the fund has distributed more than $3.7 million to over 2,100 Maryland students. Most notably, though, as Ventures concludes its dissolution process in 2026, its remaining liquid assets will significantly expand scholarship funding, positioning Ventures to support thousands more Maryland students in perpetuity. In doing so, UMGC Ventures will have concluded operations fully realizing and fulfilling its founding purpose. UMGC remains on schedule, Madam Chair, to report to this board on this transition process by December 2026. Let me conclude by saying that it's been an extraordinary privilege to serve both the University of Maryland Global Campus and the UMGC Ventures. I remain deeply grateful to this board and Chancellor Perman for the opportunity that I had to serve as UMGC's interim president in 2020. That responsibility is one that I will honor and cherish for the rest of my life. This transition is more than the conclusion of a small nonprofit organization. It affirms UMGC's strength, purpose, and stewardship. The work established through Ventures will continue supporting students, Maryland students, well into the future. It validates the strategic vision that has guided the university and reinforces its leadership position in expanding student access, advancing innovation, and strengthening its service commitment. Thank you for your continued support and confidence of UMGC, and for your support for this transition, and for your unwavering commitment to Maryland's higher education community. I wish each of you a joyous holiday season, meaningful time with loved ones, and a healthy, purpose-filled 2026. So thank you, Madam Chair, for this opportunity to present this brief presentation.
Any questions for Dr. Leek? Seeing none, Dr. Leek, I want to thank you for your presentation, and I want to say it's amazing what you've been able to do in such a short period of time and so seamlessly for the people involved. So congratulations to you and the entire team on this.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Our next item is an action item with proposed amendments to the USM policy on sex discrimination. Attorney Boyle will lead the conversation. Ms. Boyle?
Thank you. As I mentioned earlier, we've seen changes in Title IX regulations over the past 4 administrations, and so most recently, members of USM, the institutions, and the Attorney General's office have spent a great deal of time over the last year or so updating regulations so that they comport with the current well, I should say the prior 2020 regulations under the first Trump administration. And so just give you a high-level overview. If I showed you all the red lines, it would make your head crazy. Most of the redlining had to do with just restructuring an organization. So I just want to touch on the significant changes, which are, one, that the current regulations speak to the obligation of institutions to respond to sexual harassment only where the person who's receiving the report has actual knowledge of the sexual harassment. So it really kind of reduces the obligation of institutions to respond. Gender identity, sexual orientation, and pregnancy were addressed under the previous policy. Those requirements remain mostly unchanged. There are definitions in the earlier part of the policy that are updated to conform with current regulations, and those appear on pages 1 to 4 if you are interested in looking at those, and I'm happy to address any questions. I would say just that the 2024 policy was more detailed in terms of how it explained a hostile environment, and then also the standard on that relates to a hostile environment changed from unwelcome conduct determined by a reasonable person to be severe, pervasive, or objectively offensive, that it denies a person equal access to an educational program or activity. It was replaced with and. That just makes, again, kind of makes it a little more challenging to establish a hostile environment than under the previous iteration. There is a reporting requirement by the President to the Chancellor, and we discussed this at a recent USM Leadership Committee meeting, and there's a little confusion over what that stemmed from. I just want to clarify that reporting obligation that appears on page 5 stems from a Board of Regents task force where presidents, it was the sometimes referred to as the no surprise rule, but it refers to the president's obligations to report any matter that has the potential for substantial negative reputational, legal, or impact on the institution. There's a description of policies required under this policy. It gives the ability of institutions to either have a single non-discrimination policy or multiple policies surrounding these issues. There's a provision that now requires complaints to be in writing from complainants or as drafted by the Title IX coordinator. There's a requirement for live hearings for any discrimination or sex discrimination matter. And there's also an allowance for institutions to choose between the legal standard by which they want to adjudicate their complaints using either a preponderance of evidence standard or a clear and convincing standard. So that's an overview of the changes, and I'm happy to address any questions.
Yes, Imwa.
So is there in the policy the avoidance aspect, maybe a training, harassment training and those type of things?
Yes, there's still a training requirement, yes. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments on the policy itself? Seeing none, I'll move that the policy be amended as presented. May I get a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes. The next item is an update from Chancellor Perman, who will discuss Maryland's early college landscape and opportunities. As many of you know, development of signature programs to strengthen the connection between the USM and pre-K through 12 schools is a goal of our strategic plan. Chancellor Perman is particularly committed to early college programs after seeing the success of such a program in the CURE program that he helped start. Chancellor Perman, we look forward to your update.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and again, good morning, everyone. It's a particular privilege to have the opportunity to share our initial work at the system in expanding early college pathways. Because yes, I believe that early college offers us a promising boost to the primary goal that drives all of us. We're all committed to ensuring that all Maryland students can, in the vernacular, get a crack at a higher education. and can succeed in college once they've enrolled. Of course, before we can know where we're going, we need to know where we are. So over the past few months, a team in our academic and student affairs has been working closely with Empower Schools, which is a national thought and policy leader in the area of early college. And we asked Empower for a landscape report. What's the current state of early college in Maryland, in access and participation, in outcomes, and where are there opportunities to expand and improve what we're doing? And you have that report, Regents, in your material. Let me begin by, at a high level, defining some terms. Dual enrollment, of which early college can be viewed as a type. Dual enrollment refers to high school students taking college courses for credit. Now, this could be a couple of courses that students access on their own with little connection to a broad degree plan. And students who are already college-bound often take advantage of dual enrollment to save time, to save money on college coursework. And then on the other end of the spectrum, there's early college, which is a structured pathway, primarily, as it has been used around the country, targeting actually low-income students who might not have considered college as an option for them. Early college reinforces access with needed wraparound support, intentional advising, tutoring, clear course sequencing, not a course here and a course there, clear course sequencing that builds confidence and has the likelihood of breeding success. So early college is tightly aligned to career pathways, and it builds transferable college credits up to an associate degree. Expanding early access to college is a key goal of the Maryland Blueprint. And as we view it now, early college delivers on that promise with a focus on pathways that meet Maryland's most urgent workforce needs: education, healthcare, life sciences, cybersecurity. The evidence on early college, in terms of the data available, is clear. These structured programs, according to the data accumulated so far, boost college enrollment, degree completion, and long-term earnings, particularly for underrepresented students. So the report we've received delivers 5 key findings based on extensive research, interviews with stakeholders, and data analysis. And I'll go very quickly through each finding, refer you back to the report as you wish for further information. So finding number 1, and this is based, as you'll see, on a number of data sources, primarily IPEDS. Maryland is near the bottom, the U.S. bottom, in early college and dual enrollment, because college and career readiness funding, number 2, falls short, and school districts must make up the difference. Finding number 3 is that current access to to dual enrollment is inequitable. Finding number 4, Maryland lacks comprehensive outcome data and has few early college pathways that are aligned with workforce needs. And finding number 5, despite the gloominess, finding number 5 is that despite all this, Maryland has important assets that position us to lead. We've been fired up by Fernando in another area. Here too, we're positioned to lead. Let me break down these findings a little more. In finding number 1, Maryland ranks near the bottom in dual enrollment. At 10%, Maryland ranks 43rd out of 50 states in dual enrollment as a share of the public high school population. The U.S. average is 16%. And again, this is IPED's data, the latest data available. Maryland's blueprint prioritizes early college access and has shown promise in boosting dual enrollment. And yet still, Maryland ranks 43rd nationally in dual enrollment as a share of our public high school population. High school students make up just 7% of all undergraduate enrollment across Maryland, which is roughly half of the national rate of 13.7%. So that puts us 45th out of 50 states. For high school enrollment at Maryland's four-year publics, we're lower still. At 0.4%, we're 49th out of 50 states. New Hampshire is below us. We have just 3 early college programs here in the state, while similarly sized states have more than 100. The second finding gets to why our rankings may be so low, and that's because our ambitions for dual enrollment programs have outpaced the funding needed to achieve them. While eligibility for dual enrollment ballooned after the blueprint redefined college and career readiness, state funding hasn't been able to keep pace. Maryland spends far less per student on dual enrollment than other states with robust programs, just $115 per student, which leaves school districts to fill the gap, which of course is difficult, often unsustainable for many. Plus, cost-saving revisions that have been imposed on the blueprint mean that school districts are mandated to fund only 2 college courses per semester. And 2 courses was intended as a floor for cash-strapped districts. It has become often the ceiling. And again, that leads inevitably to the next finding, which is that in Maryland, access to dual enrollment programs is inequitable. Wealthier school districts can offer fully funded pathways to an associate degree. Districts serving mostly lower income students can often offer only the bare minimum. So here we have a program that's designed to expand college access, but it's constrained by the very same inequities that it was meant to overcome. As a result, our lower income students are underrepresented in dual enrollment. They make up just 30% of participants. The fourth finding is that Maryland lacks the data infrastructure to understand the full impact of dual enrollment outcomes, making it tough to evaluate program effectiveness, to spot inequities, to scale high-impact models. And our final finding is that despite these challenges, as I said, Maryland has the assets it needs to lead in early college. We have the blueprint. We have the ambitious policy of the blueprint. And we have state values again, and a system that has values which align with the goals of early college, like making equity and affordability and workforce alignment central to our education and economic strategies. So the path forward. Our next step is to see what we can do to clear the path forward with our partners across the state. I emphasize partnership. Our K-12 schools, community colleges, our four-year colleges, and Maryland leaders invested in this work. And that involves the real labor ahead, which is unifying our strategy statewide, expanding high-quality pathways to a career, growing participation among our four-year universities, leveraging our assets, and strengthening funding and policy coherence. Maryland has committed to expanding opportunities for students, but the opportunities that do exist very often go to students who are already advantaged, students who are arguably going to go to college. The students who stand to gain the most, as we look at experiences around the country, those students are the ones with the least access, the ones that are too often left behind. Early college can change that based on the information we have so far. And my argument is that the state is ready. Collectively, we have strong programs, supportive policies, and we certainly have clear workforce priorities where early college can make a real difference. I want to emphasize, and I've emphasized this to our partners in the community colleges. Community colleges are, and frankly remain, the backbone of this work. But we, at the 4 years, all of us, beyond even the system, we have to step up. Public universities in Maryland make up only 3% of dual enrollment, and we can do better in that. We can be the conveners and coordinate our partners statewide, leveraging our institutions, our assets, our know-how, our systems, our technology. And ultimately, and I'm speaking in front of Regent Leggett, who leads the accountability board for the blueprint, with whom I've had the opportunity to share preliminarily, both with him and with our wonderful colleague, Chancellor Emeritus Britt Kerwin. You know, ultimately, I see this as an effort to help fulfill the blueprint's promise. Give every student who wants it a head start on college and career, and strengthen the talent pipeline that, and we've discussed this in another way, that really drives Maryland's economic future. I would like to thank the team leading this effort at the system, Elizabeth Johnson, Dr. Jennifer Lynch, Dr. Rinn, and they are here as well to answer any questions you might have at this point. As we say in a lot of things, this is early days, but I wanted to update you on where we are. Thank you.
All right. Anwar?
Thank you, Chancellor, for that information. My question is, do we have information between the GPA of the individuals who are taking college courses? Because my understanding is the college courses are taken by the high achievers, and they will go to the college irrespective of what hurdles come in their way. So I think it will be good to know what is the correlation between the students who are high achiever already in the school. And so if we are spending time on them, you're not benefiting.
So that's exactly the point. To give you a brief overview, the majority of people who take opportunities, particularly with regard to dual enrollment, are those that are the higher achievers. And in large part, to be very direct, they often as a body look differently from the students that are not as polished early on in terms of what they might do in the classroom. But the data show, based on programs, for example, in Massachusetts, that are very deliberate on also including those students who might be more likely to be on free and reduced lunch, that often, given the right structure and supports, they go to college and they actually outdo the students that we were talking about at the beginning in terms of performance, career success, et cetera. So I think that's the opportunity. This is for everybody, but I think there's a particular opportunity for the students that we really want to attract for all kinds of reasons, including, as I say to many, the clear likelihood of economic benefit to this state.
Regent Wood?
Thank you, Chancellor Perman, for your presentation. I have a question that's a little out of the system wheelhouse, but I think it's important. The question is, are there initiatives in Maryland to promote technical school dual enrollment in the trades for early technical school?
So the answer is yes, and I should defer to Regent Leggett. You know, the blueprint focuses not just on college, and we all agree college isn't for everyone. It's just that, you know, I think we feel passionately that everybody ought to get a crack at it if they want it. But the blueprint focuses on college and career readiness. So it clearly recognizes the fact that college is not a prescription for everyone. It's just a matter that, given what we do, we need to make sure everybody gets a crack at it. The answer to your question is yes.
Well, I never knew a plumber that was broke.
No argument. No argument.
Yeah.
Yes, Regent Smirk, then Regent Edwards.
Thank you so much for doing this work. It is so interesting and so important. And at the risk of being sort of like a skunk at a garden party, I just want to explain why this hasn't happened before. Because lots of people have been trying to work on this for a very long time, and people's their hearts are into this, but there are structural reasons. So some of our other regions have sort of brought this up. In short, we have built a K-12 system that assumed that students were going to be in K-12 schools from the time they were in kindergarten or now pre-K up through 12th grade. So we built a funding formula that assumed John is going to this school, $15,000 will go from John to that school with him or her, with him to that school. Once you get up to high school, and if you have a system that is built assuming that John is going to take all of his classes at that high school, and that high school gets the full $15,000. They build programs, they build staffing models around that, and everything is fine. What happens when that student then decides that he or she wants to take some amount of that money and go to a technical school instead, or go to a community college instead, or go to a four-year instead? Now we're talking about how do we realign the needs of the student and the funding formulas we have? Because if I were a district superintendent, I would say, well, the more this program grows, the less money I have to serve the students who are not going to go through this program. So this is wonderful in concept, but it requires the most difficult conversations with our K-12 partners to say, are we willing to say that this funding ought to be portable because we're not going to fund the systems anymore, we're going to fund these students so they can get the best education possible for them, and then that requires all sorts of difficulty in downsizing programs, reimagining what high school looks like. This is wonderful. It is great, but man, it is tricky.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you identify so many of the impediments. I mean, basically, we've built an education system, pre-K through professional school and everything in between, that is siloed. You know, I particularly got interested in this work because I believe that the interface between K-12 and college, and maybe many of my colleagues don't agree, I think that that boundary needs to be blurred. And I served on a Carnegie Commission with like-minded people who believe that as well. But yes, it's got to be paid for, money gets in the way, and we have to work that out. I'll give you one little hint because I think I can say it publicly. As we move forward with this work, and it does have, and I don't think I'm putting anybody in the wrong spot, does have the interest of the governor's office. It does have the interest of our legislators who will probably drop a bill, and that's why I wanted the regents to know this in advance before we get into January and February. If we can get started, and the people that are interested, the political types, would like to see this statewide, but of course we can't do that, many reasons related to the impediment. But we have willing partners. We have them in particular in Southern Maryland, and the reason I'm mentioning it to you is it's illustrative of the kind of partnerships that need to be built. It has the interests of the LEAs, it has the interests of the CEOs of 3 counties in Southern Maryland, and importantly, the community college, the College of Southern Maryland, working together with our RHEC in Southern Maryland and the system as a whole. Perhaps a number of our institutions may be interested in providing some of the faculty needed to pull this off. Southern Maryland, like many areas of the state, is desperate to raise up and train teachers and keep them there. And this is the kind of prescription for doing that.
Regent Edwards.
Thank you, Dr. Perman, for presenting us with this quite disappointing data. But I think this is always an opportunity where we can grow and learn. And I do just want to convey my sentiments that this is something that as a system we need to get right. And the stakes are really high. And I'm glad that so many of our college, university, and presidents are here to hear about the work that needs to be done in this area. The first thing I'd like to do is just acknowledge Coppin State University and Dr. Jenkins and the wonderful work that he's doing here with Coppin Academy. It's an amazing model. Young people are doing some great academic work here. It's a strong pipeline to Coppin. It's strengthened its partnership and relationship with the school system and with the community at large. And so we do have places in our state where we have these kind of success stories. And again, I'm hoping that our colleges and university presidents will learn from each other and find ways to get in the game. I do understand that there are funding challenges, but I believe the future of your enrollment, the future of our institutions are directly tied to dual enrollment and early college partnerships that can include, again, what President Jenkins is doing here, but also bringing to the table our community colleges across the state. I also want to just make sure that every HBCU president knows that the Bloomberg Philanthropies has put $20 million on the streets to grow these types of partnerships in our K-12 education models, and I think more money is coming. And so I'm hopeful that every HBCU president will be thinking about this, will not only rely on state dollars and blueprint dollars, but will see that many of wonderful philanthropic partners are thinking about how they can fund these types of initiatives as already being led by Bloomberg Philanthropies. The final thing that I would like to say about this, and what makes it so disheartening to me as a former superintendent, who, I was in this work directly as a former superintendent 10, 15 years ago, and the numbers have not moved. That is on us. There should be strong partnerships, call to action, braiding of resources between the Regents, between our community colleges, our K-12 system, the accountability board with the blueprint. Everyone has a role to play in getting this right. And I am very hopeful that in the direct, immediate future, Dr. Perman, that we will get serious about early college in our university system, that we'll use this data and this information that you're sharing with us today to create a clear call to action, and that we will do what our students require of us, which is to create a seamless interaction and opportunity between our K-12 schools and our colleges and universities. And so I take this very seriously. It's quite disappointing, but I'm optimistic because I know we have the people in the room to solve this particular problem and to create some momentum and action on behalf of our young people. And I'm looking forward to you coming back to us, Dr. Perman, and reporting out on all of the momentum that's created as a result of today's conversation.
Thank you for your encouragement.
So we have Regent Fish, then Regent Leggett, and then Regent Marani. Regent Fish?
Thank you. Chancellor, this is a little off topic, but this presentation reminded me that the board has talked about for years about a common application so that we can keep students in Maryland. And if a student were to apply using a common application, and they would apply to the system, and they would list their first through whatever choices, four choices. If they weren't accepted to their first, they would be reviewed to be accepted to their second, third, or fourth choice.
If you're asking for a status report, I would say frankly that with regard to the kind of system that envisions people making application in a common way such that they have a choice of one of our fine institutions. If they don't get it, it kicks right over to their second choice. We talk about that often. What we need to do first is brag as all get out about that wonderful flagship that we have. But it gets back, I think, to Regent Ganella's matter of branding, not just for UMCs, and you know we're working very hard on branding. We have to continue to build the case that we have 12 premier institutions. If we can make that case, then everybody will totally accept the idea that you make application, you're going to go to a great school in Maryland. I think we've got to still work on the fact that there are multiple choices.
I would agree with that comment as well, but this specific issue is something that the board has brought up since I've been involved with the board. And I would just ask, and I know, my fellow board members a lot of them feel the same way, that we maybe raise this again, especially given the turbulent times we're entering into, and that we want to keep as many Maryland students as we can in Maryland.
Yeah, we're all subscribed to that, and let me commit to the fact that as you heard from the presidents and from President Breaux, we meet very often. This will be on the next agenda.
Regent Leggett?
Thank you for your presentation. I think it highlights a real challenge that we have in Maryland. The approach that I and others have taken is that whether it's under the blueprint or in some other format, the objective should be how do we get as many kids as possible on a career path. So there's no ownership of the kids and the system. The ownership should be, how do we get the kids through the system into productive pathways? Having said that, there are some challenges that lie ahead. One, the blueprint has been enormously successful in the dual enrollment program. The latest numbers that we have are really outstanding. The challenge, as you indicated, is that many of the kids that are in the dual enrollment program, in my opinion, probably will go to college regardless of the dual enrollment program.
Yes.
It is an asset to them, in many cases, that they are able to take advantage of that. The other part of the blueprint was designed to ensure that those kids who probably would not, that while they're still in school, we would make them college and career ready. So it's not to leave those who would normally not have thought about going to college, but the objective is to have all of our kids college and career ready by the end of the 10th grade. Now let me just explain that challenge. 2 years ago, we only had 40% of our kids in the state of Maryland college and career ready by the end of the 12th grade. So the plan is to have them college and career ready by the end of the 10th grade. If we're able to accomplish that, then I think the dual approach may be extremely effective. The other challenge that I think we have to work on is surely with our community colleges, because we want to make sure that they are part of the solution here, rather than to look at this as a threat to something for which I've just described. All of those increased numbers, if you will, that I've just described are currently in the community college. And the local jurisdictions are paying tuition to the community colleges in order to accommodate those students. So in some form or fashion, we have to make certain that they are part of what we'll possibly accomplish here, and not see this as a threat in some fashion. But this work is something that needs to be done. We're not reinventing the wheel here. What Dr. Perman has described already exists in other jurisdictions. Our challenge right now is to make certain that we have the resources to accommodate both of these approaches as we go forward.
Well, let me thank you, Regent Leggett, and obviously we're leaning on you in your role to move us forward, to advise us. I want to reaffirm the fact that the work that we intend to do here, that we've done so far, is meant to enhance what the blueprint is guiding us to do. We're all in this together with the same focus. The other point I just want to reaffirm as well is that, as I said, the community colleges are central to this. And I, again, will say publicly that I've spent a good deal of time early on in this in front of the community college presidents as an association and individually to assure them that we see their centrality to do this and that we will work in partnership with them. That's the only way.
Regent Morani.
Thank you, Chancellor, for the presentation. To me, the most interesting part of this report is finding 4, which describes that most of our K-12 schools don't report disaggregated outcomes for early college or dual enrollment students. And that's interesting to me because I know our state has a funding problem. I think everyone in the room knows the state has a funding problem. But that finding in particular sounds like a regulatory problem to me that I believe our system has leverage with policymakers to influence. What I'm curious about, if you can help me connect the dots in my mental model, is say we were able to obtain that data, what comes next with it? Because the problem asserted in the report is that we're unable to evaluate program effectiveness, but the report is also based entirely on the premise that these programs are already effective. It describes that they reduce the amount of money a student has to spend. It describes that should a student decide to pursue a 4-year degree, that they'll be more prepared for it. So my question is, what are the factors that we can manipulate, or the independent variables that we can manipulate in these programs to make them more effective? Is it timing, when a student takes them? Is it curriculum? Or what would we be using that data to evaluate?
I think it's all of the above, but I think your question, your incisive question, gives me the opportunity to say we're in the early stages and we need to answer many of the questions that you pose. By the way, you heard me use the word pilot. Quite apart from money, I've looked at what's been done in Massachusetts, what's now being done in New York, what has been done exceedingly successfully in Texas and North Carolina and Illinois and Indiana. Regent Hassan is going to say the same thing to me as he said to Fernando. You know, I hate to say it, but this is probably 10 years of work ahead of us. And it's going to need to be done incrementally, even if all the money were there. So I'll keep in mind your questions, and maybe I'll have answers next time.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments for the Chancellor? Well, hearing none, thank you, Chancellor. This was a very interesting and exciting presentation. Our final agenda item in today's public session is the launch of a new work group, the USM Policy Work Group, created in response to the board's ongoing discussions about governance and the need for a clearer policy framework. Regent Dana Stebbins will chair this group. The charge is significant to conduct a comprehensive review of all Board of Regents policies, guided by three key anchors: our statutory requirements, our accreditation standards, and existing board policies, with the understanding that these three must work in alignment. The work group will also examine how our policies can and should be contemporized, with a focused attention on matters such as artificial intelligence, digital media, cybersecurity, hybrid work and learning, research, and broader governance matters. In addition to Regent Stebbins, the work group members will include Regents Blount, Regents Marani, and Regents Smerick. Regents Leggett and Wood will serve as advisors, and I want to thank you all for your willingness to take on this work. Your efforts will help strengthen policy and governance across the USM, and the work group's work will begin in earnest in January. Having said that, are there any questions on the work group itself? Seeing none, this brings us to the close of today's meeting. This has been a particularly challenging year for higher education and for our system and our state. We've navigated complex governance issues, public pressures, policy shifts, and the realities of a rapidly changing environment, all of which have demanded our time, our judgment, and steady leadership. Even so, this board has remained focused and committed to our mission. Your engagement, your willingness to take on difficult conversations, and your dedication to serving students in the state are truly making a difference. I'd like to thank our presidents, our chancellor, C8, and the regents for your work this year and for the partnership you bring to this table. We are there, more ahead, but we end the year with clear direction and a strong foundation. I wish you all a restorative holiday season and look forward to continuing our work together next year. The Open Meetings Act permits public bodies to close their meetings to the public in circumstances outlined by 3-305 of the Act, and to carry out administrative functions exempted by 3-103 of the Act. The Board of Regents will now vote to reconvene in closed session. The agenda for the public meeting today includes a written statement with a citation of the legal authority and reasons for closing the meeting, and a listing of the topics to be discussed. The statement has been provided to the Regents and is posted on the USM's website. The closed session will be in room 203. Do I have a motion to move to closed? Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Any opposition? Hearing none, the meeting is closed. Very good.